All right, I think we're live. Welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here, and thanks so much for joining in. It's like all the other usual live streams. We're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who has a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. I always get that priority answering. And so, yeah, I see we have a bunch of people already have joined in to say hello. We have Brian, Kevin, Mr. 705, Truck and Car Guy, Cars, Grand, Jordan, Jazz, Raphael, and B. Mitchell. Thanks for joining in, everyone. Hope your weekend's been going well. And Brian says good evening. And Truck and Car Guy says, sorry I missed last week, was caught up in birthday festivities. Well, happy belated birthday. Hope you had a great one. And yeah, hope it was all good. And Cara says, hi, Matt. I like your new chat live settings. I'm looking forward to an awesome live stream. Yeah, so I've tweaked some things. So hopefully we don't have any spammers this week. I did a little bit of digging. There's a new setting that I was able to check to hopefully filter out spam messages a little bit better. And then there's also this slow mode now, in addition to, again, being a requirement that you have to be a subscriber for over 24 hours. But the slow mode thing means, yeah, unfortunately, you have to wait every 15 seconds to send another follow-up message. Hopefully that won't be too annoying, for anyone that's not trying to spam. But just figured that'll at least reduce the volume of spam that, either myself or, one of the moderators has to deal with if it comes to that. But since we had an issue with that last week, just wanted to try and nip that in the bud this week if we possibly can. And let me see. Grand says, good evening. Jordan says, hey, Matt, me and my husband Chad are here. Well, hello, Chad. Hello, Jordan. Thanks for joining in to both of you. And Raphael and B. Mitchell says, greetings from suburban St. Paul, Minnesota. Thanks for joining in, B. Mitchell. Luke says, just got done my grandmother's funeral. I'm so sorry to hear that. Hope it was a healing time, at least a little bit, to be together with everyone. And sorry you had to deal with that. He says, my girlfriend's first time meeting the family. Well, that's exciting. Hopefully there is some positive vibes there, even with the farewell. But I definitely know how sad that can be. So sorry to hear that. And you have my sympathy. Mitchell says, he normally operates in slow mode. All right, well, then I guess it'll be all good. Freight Productions and Review says, came by to say hello. I have to skip tonight's live. My mom is battling cancer, and I'm sitting with her tonight. Have a great night, everyone. I'm so sorry to hear that. Hope that things improve for her, and hope you have some great time with your mom there. Thanks so much for stopping by and saying hello, and we'll catch you when things are better. Dylan says, I know your whiskey, dude. There's this small brand called Cathedral Ledge based out of New Hampshire. I've been enjoying it. Hopefully you can try it someday. I'd love to. I always enjoy trying new whiskeys, and it's always fun. So cracked open a new bottle in the live stream or in the weekly update here on Friday, if you caught that. And that's one I hadn't tried before. And the Maker's Mark 40, I think it's 46, and was pretty good stuff. Luke says, overall today was fun. I saw an uncle I haven't seen in 20 years. Well, that's great. And yeah, there's a lot of those things where you have people you usually don't see, you see for the first time in a while, and it's always good. I actually was at a wedding all weekend in West Virginia, and same deal, people that haven't seen in years, or some people I was meeting for the first time, and getting to talk to some really cool people. And it's always kind of cool when some of those big family events at least bring everyone together, for better or for worse. But glad there is some good times had there a little bit. Let me see. So B. Mitchell says, okay, talking about right there. And Raphael says, why is the goal 100% EV adoption when a third of people don't live in houses? 50% isn't good enough. I don't know who is going for 100% EV adoption. I think everyone kind of understands that that's most likely where we will get to eventually, although there's a lot of people that, don't agree with that either. Akio Toyoda, chairman of Toyota, he thinks that the world will get to about 30% EV adoption rate, and he thinks that's about where it'll max out globally. That's accounting for countries that are bringing down the average, that don't have electricity, that don't have easy access to that stuff, just don't have the money to invest in that stuff, whatever the case might be. And then you have other more advanced countries that are going to have, a higher percentage than 30%, but that's his global average. And I'm not sure how far out he's looking for that, or if he just thinks that regardless of the year, that's as high as it'll go. So, this is all, it remains to be seen. I think there's a lot of unknowns that could drive us to 100%, or could drive us, potentially to zero if, things, go in the wrong direction, as in regards to the development stuff. I think, again, these kinds of questions are helpful to, keep in mind. We're talking about 2024 technology. We're talking about 2024 infrastructure, 2024 constraints. Things change so fast. We're already seeing the evolution of batteries happen really quickly. We're seeing chargers coming online really fast. There's a lot of that stuff. Like, for example, yes, right now you need to have a home or, a driveway, something to charge or charge at work if you're going to have a stress-free EV experience. I would argue there's people on here who have in the past said they charge once a week when they go to the grocery store, every Sunday night for their grocery run or whatever. They're in there for 45 minutes. They come out, their car is fully charged, and they're good for the week. And they drive less than 300 miles a week or whatever, and that's fine for them. I mean, there's some people that will still do it. And so I don't think you have to live in a house to have an EV. And I think, when the cars get better, when we're talking about Toyota saying 600 mile range EVs, just a couple of years, and we're seeing recharge times dropping, solid state batteries, if that becomes a thing, or even these sodium batteries, which are already happening in China, all these things. We're talking about 600 to 1,000 miles on a charge, and then you have a charge happening in 10 minutes. Then you don't need a house. You don't need to charge every night. It's going to be a whole lot better, especially, again, if we're at a point where we have more widespread charging infrastructure and all that as well. But it's really going to come down to the cars. I mean, I like to liken it to, iPhones, how, 2008, basically, how many years is that? 15, 14 years, something like that. There was no such thing as an iPhone. There was no such thing as a smartphone, really, unless you want to count, Blackberries, things like that. But and Palm Pilots, there was no such thing as a smartphone. And here we are, just a little over a decade later, and we have these insanely powerful augmented reality computers in our pockets that we're all glued to nonstop. That happened in just that short time period. And, when you look at the average age of a car on the road is 12 and a half years, if cars, and the batteries and stuff, they're not going to evolve as fast as smartphones, but if they evolve at a similar pace, especially with the amount of money being invested into this, then why can't electric cars evolve as fast as a smartphone? And, going from basically nothing to now having these insanely powerful things, that are replacing people's DSLRs. A lot of YouTube car reviewers don't even use real cameras anymore. They're going to all iPhones. You would have told, Motor Trend when they were doing their videos back in 2008, you'll be filming this stuff on an iPhone in 15 years. They think you're crazy, And so if I told you 15 years from now, we'll have 5-minute recharge times and 1,000-mile batteries, I think I'm crazy too. And maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. But that's all in play, in my opinion. That's all very viable stuff. So this is why we're not talking about 100% EV adoption in 2025. We're talking 100% 2040s, 2050s. Even then, you're still going to have people that are clinging on to their beloved gas car until the end of time. So we'll never, it's not a zero-sum game. We're never going to get to 100%, because there will be one person on Earth in 3,000 years that still has a gas-powered car going, so technically we'll be at 99.9%. So we'll never get to 100%. I guess I can say that, but, we will, I think, again, just have to wait and see. And again, there could be better technologies that emerge. Maybe someday people finally catch on to hydrogen and find a way to package it better so it doesn't take up your entire backseat and entire trunk space. And, someone invests in the infrastructure in a gigantic way. Maybe we'll be talking about hydrogen cars. I don't know if electric vehicles are going to be the future for the next 100 years, but I think that, there's a lot of potential there. So as of right now, I agree. I don't recommend an EV if you can't charge at home or you can't charge at work. It's just usually a pain. You can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. So to be determined, I'd say. But, I always have to just remind people, don't think in 2024 terms. Think about how fast the world changes, and just keep that in mind whenever you hear all these big dreams about what's going to happen in 10 years. I think there's a lot of stuff we don't know what the world's going to be like. Who knows we'll even be here, in 10 years. We all could just have these countries go nuts and end up in some World War III or something. We won't have to worry about it. If we really want to get crazy, like, I'm not even worried about it. We'll see. Just take it day by day and see what happens. But anyway, not to get dark, but Kyle says, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in, Kyle. Luke says, I'm looking forward to getting my 25 Frontier in November sometime. Awesome. So I'm guessing maybe you put an order in or you're on a wait list or something, but that's great. Hope it comes quickly for you, and I'm looking forward to reviewing one once they're in the fleet as well. But hopefully you got a good deal on it if you've been working out with a dealer there to try and get something put together. Hopefully they're being decent with you. Kyle says, Matt, which engine / exhaust had a better sound, WRX or GR Corolla? I mean, I love the Boxer Rumble. So we're talking old WRXs. WRX definitely for sure, in my opinion. Honestly, I mean, GR Corolla sounds good. It's just a lot of induction note. I've heard some aftermarket exhausts, and they sound fine. I'd say as much as I love the GR Corolla, it doesn't have like an amazing exhaust note or anything super memorable, to be completely honest. And the WRX always has had that. I think these new WRXs, still, if you're a traditional Subaru fan, that's something that, it still has a little bit of an adjustment period. Like, it doesn't sound quite right for a WRX still, in my opinion. So I think it's really a personal preference thing. To me, I'd probably say pre-2015 WRX is the best sound of the bunch. But again, these days I don't even care what it sounds like. GR Corolla just drives better, so I'll live with whatever sound it produces, which I think is still actually really cool. I do enjoy it. So I think GR Corolla is my pick there, as everyone probably predicted. And Cam Jam says, nice shirt. I appreciate it. Cam. Raphael says, when we get to that tech level, I'm on board with an EV, just not 2030. Right. Yeah. And I think that's why no one's really realistically planning 2030. I know the UK government has a goal that ramps up pretty aggressively by 2030, but even they're really pushing back on that. And most companies are realizing, and people are realizing, that the UK's goal is probably not going to happen. And, the thing with like the California mandate and all that stuff, again, if any of these things even stick around again with the way the EPA has been kind of gutted, but even if that all stands, the California mandates still had plug-in hybrids. I think you'd have over 70 miles of range in the plug-in hybrids. We're talking next-gen plug-in hybrids, which we'll all have over that for the most part. But that was always in there. There's a loophole for plug-in hybrids indefinitely. So even if California still pushes forward, still hits the 2035 mandate, it will still allow anything with a plug-in hybrid. And that's going to allow a lot of stuff in addition to, again, all the used stuff. And that, meaning anything built before 2035 still is fair game. And those cars will last, again, another 12 and a half or more years easily. So that's why this is a long ways off for all this stuff. Nothing to worry about, in the near future. And again, we will see what happens in November. We'll see what happens with all the global governments and what everyone decides to do. But I think the car industry still is, working towards an electrified future. And that's still, I think everyone in the industry agrees that's the inevitable future, whether we get there, 2040, 2050, whatever. Like, I think most companies agree, like, that's the way things are going to go, at least, again, for the majority of countries, that are, in buying cars in large numbers and things like that. And Car says, last week I saw a Lucid Air followed by a Rivian R1T on the interstate. They look really cool. As far as looks are concerned, what is your favorite EV exterior style, and excluding exotics? Personally, I don't know. I mean, a lot of EVs look fine. I'm trying to think of which one non-exotic would be my favorite. I mean, Ioniq 5 is really up there. I really love the way that thing looks. So that's probably one of my favorites, as far as non-exotics goes. The Lucid is super cool looking for sure. So that's definitely up there as well. I really still like, this is gonna be kind of a lame answer, but the Volvo EX90. I mean, it's just the Volvo, but it has those like Iron Man headlights where you have a little strip and then it like opens up and reveals the actual eyes that come like piercing through in the headlight there. It's a really cool look. So I think those headlights like win headlights of the decade, in my opinion. They're so cool. The rest of the vehicle obviously is fine. It's a Volvo SUV, but those headlights, put those headlights on a sweet, Volvo or Polestar sports car or something, and you have a really good combo. So I think those are probably the top hits that I can think of personally. And speaking of stuff I saw this weekend, though, I mean, I saw a bunch of Cybertrucks, including one that was white. I don't know if you can get them like wrapped white from the factory, if they just did it aftermarket, but it looked like a giant rolling refrigerator, like an old like white refrigerator in my parents' house or something. This like giant, rectangle just rolling down the road. And actually saw a Cybertruck also on a car carrier along with some other Teslas being delivered. So they're popping up everywhere. It's crazy. And Jordan says, can all of us Matt fans agree that the Acura EV concept front fascia is copy and paste of the Buick Enclave Envision? It is a lot of that. It is for sure. I mean, the headlights, the shape. I mean, their nose is a little pointier, but again, you tone it down for production, you'll probably land pretty close to where Buick is. So I don't know how Acura feels about that. I mean, again, a lot of these things, these companies plan pretty far in advance, so there's only so much you can pivot. But surely they've seen, I mean, Buick's been doing this for over a year now. So it's, it'll be interesting to see, again, if it looks a little different from, for production as far as differentiating it from the Buick there. But yeah, not a great, or I guess I should say the Acura isn't a very original design. Even the back end, it's just very forgettable. And again, this is supposed to be the exciting concept. Like the production version is gonna be toned down even more. And it's like, honestly, I think the ZDX looks cooler. I mean, it's that was a little underwhelming to me. So we'll see again what ends up being produced out of that. But I can't help but I can't shake the feeling that like Acura and Honda could be doing so much more, and like something's holding them back. They're just, I don't know. Anyway, Luke says the uncle I haven't seen in 20 years sells Nissans. Well, that's convenient. That's awesome. So hopefully they're not too far from you, and you can end up working with them, and that'd be awesome. Or even just do a road trip to wherever your uncle is. That'd be cool. And hopefully he'll take care of you then. That's great. Dylan says, I'm being optimistic about that rumored V8 all-wheel drive Mustang 4-door or not. I was ready to buy that all-wheel drive Challenger due to the concept being wicked cool. If only it had come out with the V8. Yeah, and we will see with the Mustang as well, with packaging and stuff, if they can actually make all-wheel drive work with the V8. I will just have to see. I mean, it seems, the discussions I've seen, it seems like it's pretty much a done deal. The 4-door Mustang is going to happen. And I mean, that will certainly have a V8, to again answer the void in the market that the Charger now doesn't fill. So there's definitely going to be that. As far as the all-wheel drive component, we'll have to see how that plays out, because it might not even be the all-wheel drive system people want. It might be a through-the-road thing. Maybe it'll be like a hybridized Mustang that has an electric front axle or something to find a way to do that while still keeping the engine low, because that's the problem with all-wheel drive and combining with the V6. This is why Dodge never did it with the Challenger. They did it with the Charger, but only the police version of the Charger, except for, I think it was they did the RT all-wheel drive for like a couple of years, like 2010 to 2011 or 2012, something like that. It was a limited thing, and you have to lift up the vehicle a little bit more to make room for that. Because I actually asked a Dodge executive at one point too, like, why didn't you do this? And it was, again, just like a packaging thing for them, that they just, didn't want to do it with a V8. And so, I mean, maybe Ford has a solution around that, but I mean, the Coyote V8 is still, a pretty big motor. So, we'll see if they, I would say if you're hoping for an all-wheel drive one, be prepared for some type of electrified front end or something, or some creative way to get through the road all-wheel drive. I'm skeptical they're actually going to have half shafts coming off of the V8 and, have an actual mechanical all-wheel drive system. I'd love to be proven wrong. We will see. I I believe even with S550, I mean, there was the rumors, and Ford originally had said they're doing a hybrid Mustang for S550. Then it ended up getting canceled and quietly went away for some reason. But that, I think the understanding there was it was going to be EcoBoost combined with an electric thing in the front there to give it all-wheel drive. And then that was going to be kind of like a step up from EcoBoost, kind of in a way fill the shoes of the V6 that was leaving at that point in time, and be something underneath the V8. But again, if they really want to one up Dodge, Dodge has all-wheel drive now with the Charger, and so they're going to have to figure out a way to do it if they really want to do it. I just don't know with that platform because again, S550, S650, I don't know how much bandwidth there is there to really play around with that. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, I believe that there's a lot of similarities in swappability with CD6 and stuff like from the Continental, if I remember correctly, and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe they'll figure something out, but I don't know how that's going to go. I mean, I'm pretty convinced, again, we will see a rear-wheel drive four-door Mustang with a V8. That I'm pretty certain of. Anything beyond that, I wouldn't get your hopes up, and I would definitely, say that's going to be a wait and see thing for those. B. Mitchell says everyone may film on an iPhone, but they only have so much onboard memory. I was working with an auction company this week that uses them for stills and video, but they have to download to the cloud. Yeah, there's definitely some limits there. I mean, I think they've really increased the amount of storage capacity. So if you're filming a feature-length movie or something, sure. But for most of these car reviews, you maybe get an hour of footage tops. A lot of these guys that do these one-take things and stuff, it's not much longer than what you see in the finished product there. And, these iPhones now, go up to 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes for storage? Like mine's 512, and I mean, I have like tons of pictures that I like having like physical copies of my stuff on my phone as well. So I have like, a bunch of stuff just sitting on the memory there, and I still have tons of space to film multiple car reviews if I wanted, no problem. So it takes a while for sure, but yeah, I mean, it's easy to dump to the cloud, and with AirDrop and all that, it's pretty seamless. And I watch my colleagues do it all the time at auto shows and stuff. They're just filming it, dumping it straight onto their computer right there, then and there, deleting it off the phone, and going out and filming the next one. So it's crazy. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm considering switching to filming with an iPhone pretty much exclusively. I still sometimes have some notes on my phone that I sometimes like referencing occasionally, and so pulling down my phone to like see stuff would be a little tricky. I could just start having physical like papers and stuff, which I might do if I decide someday to go to iPhone filming. But I mean, it works great for a lot of them. I've been suggesting like, dude, you should just go for iPhone, because I don't love my camera sometimes the way that it films. It's the white balance is a little rough. Sometimes it goes a little dark whenever I'm in shady areas and stuff, and I got to kind of fix it in post-production and lighten things up, and it's kind of a headache. And the iPhone handles a lot of that stuff a lot better. The dynamic range is a lot better. So I'm gonna wait and see. We'll see how these cameras hold up and see what I decide to do. But I think I'm getting more and more antsy to switch to 4K for the car reviews, because there is a growing amount of people watching YouTube on televisions, and a lot of people have 4K TVs these days that actually can appreciate the resolution. I've always kind of dragged my feet on switching to 4K previously, because like it still is, even to this point in time, like I think close to 50% of people are watching these things on their phones or a tablet at most, and you can't really appreciate 4K quality on those things. Like truly, I think they said like the science of it, even if you have 20/20 vision, like I think even for like a 30-inch display, you have to be sitting like 2 feet away from it max. Otherwise, like your eyes physically cannot tell the difference. You might think you can tell the difference, but biologically you cannot, if unless you're right up against the screen there. So that's why I've always been like, it's a nice like marketing thing, but it's not actually improving the experience. That's why I switched to 60 frames per second, because I think that actually does add some realism to the video and make it a little more lifelike. So I switched to that, over I think about 5 years ago now. But 4K is probably going to happen soon, just because again, just YouTube keeps telling us like more and more people watching on TVs like optimized for television, because that's the way it's going. A lot of people are just tired of streaming services and paying for that. You can just sit here and watch YouTube for free, so it is getting more and more appealing for people. And Trent Cargas says Ioniq 5 is one of the cooler EVs. Yeah, it's really well done in my opinion. Jordan says, how did Ioniq 5 test drive at my drive-through at Whataburger? Was blown away. Nice. Yeah, they're cool. I really like them a lot. And if it were up to me, I mean, we ended up going with the Mach-E because that's kind of what worked better for us. But I was kind of like in camp Ioniq 5 personally. Beth just doesn't love the styling of it. The interior also, I think we like the interior of the Mach-E a little bit better. It had the wireless CarPlay, which the Ioniq 5 didn't have. And there's a few other things. The frunk was nice to have in the Mach-E and stuff. But um, if it were me by myself making that decision, but I had those same parameters of it must be a new EV, I probably would have gone Ioniq 5 myself, honestly. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for your continued generosity and for helping out so many people to allow them to be members again or new members here. But I think everyone there, it looks like a familiar name. So happy to see everyone able to get back into the membership club. Thanks to Kyle. So thank you again, Kyle. And let me see here. Other member questions. Luke says, I've seen a Cybertruck in dark slate gray and dark red. Interesting. I haven't seen one in red before. I have no clue. Can you actually get them in colors? I thought they all just were like the stainless steel and that was it. But I've seen some of those like goldish looking ones too. And I can never tell if it's just like the stainless steel aging poorly already or if it's actually like intentional. I can't tell the difference. Raphael says, I don't want to sound like an EV hater. The e-tron GT is one of my top 3 cars. Yeah, no worries. I mean, the thing about, maybe I sound a little bit defensive because I get a lot of crap about EVs all the time, and I don't mean to come off that way. But I welcome the questioning and I welcome the scrutiny because if something is legit, it should stand up to questioning. I have that same belief about anything in life. If something is legit, it should stand up to questioning. It should stand up to challenges. And if it doesn't, and you expose the flaws in that thing, whatever it is, then that's healthy. That is going to work towards that thing, whatever it is, becoming better. And, if you're blind to the deficiencies of it, you're just, in a room of echo chamber, everyone just giving everyone a high five and a thumbs up, then, you don't actually make any progress. So, I mean, basically everything in life, I'm like, question it. Anything you think, anything you believe, question it. If it stands up to the questioning, and if you fact check everything and it's all legit, then sit there and put your flag in the dirt and stand with it. But if it's I just think that's a very healthy thing to question stuff. So absolutely question the EV stuff. Question certain things. And again, if it doesn't fit your lifestyle, then absolutely, it's not going to fit everyone's lifestyle ever. Some people will fit, sooner than later, and others, it might not ever work, and that's okay. That's why I think I love the way Toyota's approaching this. They're going to have a bunch of EVs here coming in the next couple of years, but they still have the plug-in hybrids for people that aren't totally comfortable with an EV yet, or just need more range than a electric vehicle provides. And yet you have the hybrids for the apartment dwellers and all that, and they still have some traditional gas stuff. Like I was talking about in this past weekly update, they might get rid of the traditional gas stuff, in the next few years. But even if they do, again, a hybrid is not going to infringe on anyone's mobility or freedoms or anything like that. They're super reliable. I mean, like we're talking hundreds of thousands of miles on the original batteries in those Toyota hybrids. Super easy to swap those batteries as well. They've been around for 2 decades, over 2 decades. We're talking about tried and true, proven tech. Nothing there that's going to ruffle any feathers, honestly, aside from people who just love the idea of their engine idling at a red light pointlessly, things like that. But, for the enormous majority, even if they go all hybrid, again, that's not going to hurt anyone's freedoms, I don't think, really. So I think it's great the way Toyota's doing it. And again, they're bringing down their emissions a ton, as they go, again, all hybrid with Camry now this year and all that. And so, again, it's about meeting people where they're at and, questioning it. I welcome all the questioning, absolutely. And I'm happy to answer questions too, because there's a lot of crap out there. And I mean, I don't, act like I have all the answers, but, I do this as my job, and I stay on top of this a lot more than I think some other people that might just see a headline here or there, see some weird TikTok video claiming some BS, and that's it. I mean, I've even had family members, not just recently, that have been asking me and even Beth questions about, do your door handles get stuck? Can you, drive it in the rain? All these people just genuinely don't know. And they, unless you're in this car world where you're being bombarded with all this information all the time, there's a lot of people just have no clue. And that's not their fault. I have no clue about what new Gucci stuff's coming out this fall, or like, that's not my thing. So like, I have that patience with people of like, I don't expect people to know about this stuff. It's a really nerdy niche of stuff. And so, I'm happy to, always, share what I know and share what, makes sense to me and my opinions, and, then let everyone decide and scrutinize it for yourselves and take what you like, discard what you don't, and, no hard feelings at all. And Jorge says that Iron Man Volvo headlight sounds like a good idea for the next gen Miata as a play to the original pop-ups. I agree. And even with I can't remember what they called their concept back in the last fall in Tokyo. But there was like the Mazda Vision Coupe or whatever, and it has like the little slits that pop up to actually do like a physical popping up kind of thing. But I mean, the Volvo thing is also be a great way to kind of work around that as well, because I think the problem with the pop-up thing is pedestrian restrictions in Europe. You're not allowed to really have things that can impale people anymore. Surprise, surprise. So that's kind of, I think, the problem there. But if it's a low enough little slick, because it really just like popped up just a couple of inches, I'm sure there's probably a amount that you're able to do before you go full-blown pop-up and make the car illegal by modern standards here. So I'm hoping that they do bring that back. I think that would be really cool. I don't know if Mazda's crazy enough to put it on a production vehicle. I hope that they do someday. And we will see what happens with the next gen Miata. But I mean, I think people are ready for the nostalgia at this point. I think most people would overwhelmingly approve of some type of homage to pop-up headlights in the new Miata. So we'll see what happens. Sounds like we got a while to wait, since we just saw ND3 here. I wouldn't expect a new Miata for at least another 3 years, probably more. I mean, because especially the Japanese, they really hone their vehicles for a long time. So if we haven't even seen any kind of camoed spy mules or anything, I mean, I'd probably say 5 years easily, because people were spying, like the R35 GTR years before it ever, saw the light of day. And it's, some of that stuff takes a long time. So we'll see. And Kyle says, the automatic GR Corolla has my interest, provided there is no 5,000 added onto the MSRP. Yeah, I think, it's going to come down to where you live, how much you're willing to travel and search for that deal. And also the fact that, Toyota doesn't let you do orders. So it's just a matter of getting on a wait list, hoping a dealer gets in what you want, or you're flexible enough to just take whatever color you want. Or again, you just got to get on Auto Trader or something, hunt down dealer inventory, see what's out there, what people have coming in, and traveling for it. But I will say, I mean, my brother-in-law sells Toyotas, and he says, like, I do an MSRP deal. They actually have a GR Corolla 2024 Core manual in red coming in any day now. And I asked him about it this past week. I was like, are you going to, just because I like bringing awareness of the fact that they're available at sticker, because a lot of people, still do either see markups, or they just were burned by the markups a couple of years ago, and so they're just turned off. And he's like, I'll totally do MSRP on that if someone wants it. So once it's confirmed to come in, I may actually even share the link to it or something to be like, here's another MSRP GR Corolla. Again, the automatic, of course, is going to be like, ooh, it's the new hot thing. So there might be some dealers that try and get greedy with it. But I'm hoping that, you might have to wait a little bit, wait for the first one or two people to get them that are going to pay their markups or whatever. But hopefully it'll be less of a waiting period for, the automatics to kind of cool off. And then, you can maybe grab one without too much trouble. And again, there are some people that were buying some of the first GR Corollas at sticker. You just have to, make sure you get in early with a dealer and, have some good luck, or again, just the willingness to hunt it down and figure out the deal. But hopefully it won't be too hard. Hopefully it can be nice and easy for you, Kyle, if that's something you want to pursue, because they are fantastic. I'd highly recommend even just trying to test drive a manual one, just to make sure before you go to all the trouble. If you haven't driven one yet, Kyle, I'd definitely try and give it a whirl if you can drive manual, and see if it's worth the hunt for you. But I like it, but again, it's not for everyone. Everyone likes different things. So just because I love it doesn't mean it's going to be the best thing for everyone. B. Mitchell says, I like vehicles designed like cylinder blocks, so I'm also keen on the Ioniq 5. Yeah, and it is one sexy cylinder block, that's for sure. And let me see. And B. Mitchell, or maybe don't want to miss any questions here. He says, I still think a Ford or Mustang is a better name, Marauder or Crown Vic. Being under my S550, I can't see how they package front-wheel drive. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was remembering as well. But thanks for bringing some fresh confirmation there to that. Yeah, and again, S650 is almost identical underneath. It's a little stiffer, but there's not any packaging changes. So yeah, that's why the all-wheel drive thing, it's going to have to be something electrified, I think, if they do that. And yeah, I mean, I love Marauder, Crown Vic. Someone even commented in the weekly update and said Falcon, just bring Falcon back. That works for Australia. It also, of course, works for those that know their history here. The 60s, Falcons we had that were the precursor to the Mustang on the same platform. And it kind of fits perfectly. But instead, they're going to call it Mach 4 or something. I'm just like... I hope that like Gillette or whoever owns Mach 4 actually I know it's a different category, so you're allowed to use the same name, but I hope someone challenges them on that or something. Because yeah, there's so many good names. I can respect trying to do something new, but if you're gonna do something new, then do something original and call it like a truly new name instead of riffing off of something old, with the Mach thing. Because that just adds more confusion because there's Mach E, then there's Mach 4, but is the Mach 4 an E or is the E not a 4? It's a whole thing. So but I mean, Ford makes some questionable decisions, so why not another one? Jordan says, I'm still a fan of the Ford C-Max. Do you think that vehicles played into the development of, or that vehicle played into the development of the Mach E despite the Mustang badge, possible EV comeback? So I don't know how much C-Max really played into it. There is a cool story about how Mach-E came to be. I don't know if they did a documentary on it or what. I remember seeing some kind of Ford promo video about it where they had an EV and I'd say the side profile looked fairly similar if we're talking like, from where the front doors start to like where the rear doors end. That was fairly similar. Then the front end was completely different, back end was completely different. And that's whenever Jim Farley, I think, was the one who really pushed to, do the Mustang thing so people would actually care about it and talk about it. And so I don't know if it didn't look anything like it's like a next-gen C-Max, so I don't think C-Max really played into that. I think C-Max was a good idea from a pragmatic standpoint. I actually had an extended family member that had a C-Max and loved it, even though they don't get any attention or anything. I mean, it seemed like it was actually better than most people gave it credit for. So you're not alone being a fan of the C-Max there, Jordan. But yeah, I don't think it really played too much into it. And there wasn't really any learnings either. They probably learned a little bit from, Focus Electric, which was kind of the test bed for just electrified, EV stuff from Ford, but I think C-Max was kind of its own thing there. And I don't think they'd bring that back either. That was kind of when Ford was in their phase where they were not ashamed to bring European stuff over, and they were shipping the C-Maxes right alongside the Fiestas and Focuses and all that, but I think that ship has sailed, sadly. And Trenton Cargay, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate it. Happy to see everyone's able to grab those there. And so thanks so much for your generosity, Trenton Cargay. And let me see. So B. Mitchell says, there's also the you look like you know what you're doing factor with using my Nikon DSLRs at auctions and events, that and you can't beat the durability. Right. Yeah. There is that component as well. You don't have to worry quite as much about dropping them and all that. So, and I also I feel like I have better stability, even though I have like a little grip mount thing for my iPhone. I still feel like I have better stability holding something heavier. I think it actually allows me to have a more stable hand when I'm panning, because I do a decent amount of handheld stuff still. And I can definitely film better on that than my iPhone. I mean, the iPhone has better image stabilization to kind of level the playing field there a little bit, but yeah, I prefer filming with something, with more mass for sure. And again, yeah, you're right about the you look at what you're doing thing. Because there's some of these times, I show up at these things to film, these vehicles before anyone's seen them before, and it's this very privileged experience. And I'm, in front of all these executives and these PR reps and stuff for these companies, and I'm kind of glad that I have a fairly legit looking setup. I mean, it's no TV production or anything, but I have a real DSLR. I got my tripod. I got those types of things. Versus I could really film it on my iPhone, but I just feel like they'd be like, why do we invite this kid here? He's walking around with an iPhone and that's it. But they also know it's a new world now, and a lot of people they do invite do everything on their phones, especially the vertical people. It's all they usually use is their phone. So they definitely, these days, especially the younger people that are in PR for these companies, they get it and they understand that you show up with an iPhone doesn't mean that you're phoning it in. No pun intended. They know that it's still a serious tool for the job. And Cam Jam says picked up a used new for me Yamaha jet ski today. Still keeping my 06, but this one rips. That's awesome. Congrats, Cam Jam. Hope you have fun with it. And would love a jet ski someday. If I could ever have the free time to even enjoy such a thing. That's awesome. I hope you have a blast with it. Let me see. Jordan says, we watch your live on our 4K TV, but also have your video on silent on our phones to ask questions. Don't know if that applies to everyone. Interesting. Okay, that's cool. I mean, that's definitely the way to do it, so you can actually interact. Because that's kind of the thing with TV is it's kind of clunky to interact unless you have it up in two places, that's kind of cool. I guess that's a good workaround for that. Yeah, I'm not sure because they even were saying YouTube was telling us that there's a lot of people that watch YouTube Shorts, which are vertical on their TVs, and they use the remote to flip through shorts. I didn't even know you could do that. I've never tried to watch a short on the TV, but apparently there's people that I guess it's kind of nice if you're in bed or something and you have a TV right there instead of having your phone, you're staring down, hurting your neck or whatever. You can be looking up and just sit there and look through them that way. I don't know. I haven't tried it, so I'm not going to knock it, but just seems so bizarre to be on this widescreen theatrical display and be looking at a little vertical thing. Vertical format just never seemed very good for video, honestly, but it took off because again, Apple popularized it, and for better or for worse, it's the way it is. But I think a lot of video creatives, the traditionalists at least, still kind of pull their hair out at the constrictions you have with vertical a lot of the time. And it's sometimes it's tough to film stuff vertically and try and get everything in, especially with cars, which are horizontal things as well, makes it extra hard. People, it's easier because it's vertical and that makes sense. But with cars, a stand, 10 feet away to even get the whole car in the shot and all that, it's a whole thing. And Dave says, hey, is Kyle actually Saab Kyle? I don't know. Maybe it is Saab Kyle's alternate account. That would be cool. But no, I've chatted with Kyle on Facebook Messenger in the past and stuff. I believe he is a different person, unless he's got a different profile picture for Facebook or something. I don't know. But no, I think Saab Kyle's hopefully doing well. And I see his little updates on Instagram, from time to time. It seems like he's doing well. I wish him all the best. Cam just says, I had not seen a Cybertruck ever until today when I saw 3. Yeah, they really are popping up. It's funny. Luke says, any good places in Pittsburgh/Weirton area for ceramic coatings? I want to get one for my Frontier. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a drive if you're coming from the western part of Pittsburgh and Weirton and all that. But the place that I've always gone to in the past is Blackout Tinting. They're the ones that hooked me up with all the stuff on the Bullet. They do really good expel installs for the wrapping, but they also do ceramic coatings. I believe they just do the expel ceramic coating now. They used to do Ceramic Pro back when I was working with them with the Bullet, and that was before Expel did their ceramic coating. But we did the Expel ceramic coating on Beth's Mercedes C300 that we leased for 3 years, and it was also really nice. That it really popped, and it was really beautiful with the ceramic coating there. So if you don't mind making the drive, even for me, it's almost an hour east of Pittsburgh just to get there. But it's a really, they really know what they're doing, and a lot of these places are real hack jobs in these other places. So it's one of those things you don't want to have someone screw it up or do it haphazardly. So I would argue it's worth the hassle to make it a little bit of a drive and get it done well. But I'm sure there's other shops that do a really good job too. It's not like they're the only one in the world that can put it on a ceramic coating well. But that's my recommendation. So take that as you may. Raphael says, someone here has a Cybertruck painted in Cleveland Browns colors. A massive hit at the stadium for the game. Nice. That's cool. Man, yeah, they really attract a lot of attention regardless. But to have one in those colors is, I'm sure someone's going to do it for the Steelers here too. I'll have to see how if it pops up here this fall. I'm sure it's bound to happen. That's funny. You've already seen one here. And let me see. Brian, thank you so much for a super chat. They said just thanking Truck and Car Guy for the membership. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, and happy to have you here in the membership club. And looking forward to chatting with you more, Brian. But thank you again for the super chat as well. And let me see. Kyle says he used to watch Stop Kyle stuff a lot. Good Stick says, I just saw Deadpool and Wolverine yesterday. Deadpool dissed the Odyssey very hard. Interesting. I wonder if that was a deliberate Honda thing or not. That's cool. Yeah, I'll get around to watching it someday. I've seen the other Deadpools, but I haven't seen the new one with Wolverine there. So I'm hoping to maybe see that at some point here once it pops up on a streaming service. But that's funny. I'm very curious to hear what they said about the Odyssey. And Jordan says, I saw in Jay Leno's garage that the Ioniq 5 headlights design was based on consumers playing the video game Minecraft. Are there any other types of media that could influence car design? Absolutely. There's something like that recently. I just remember reading about. I don't remember who it was. I mean, obviously, a lot of stuff's inspired by, planes and boats and stuff like that. But there is some other, video game inspired stuff too. But I can't remember what it was. It just seems like half the new car designs are inspired by Grand Theft Auto, because it's like half of these cars are seeing like GTA 5, from 10 years ago, and they're like popping up, being pretty close to some of these new cars that are coming out in the past few years. It's been kind of funny to see that. But yeah, I can't think of any others off the top of my head though. But there are certainly some times where there's like little elements that are inspired by, something, whether it's like cyberpunk or, things like that. They kind of influence those things. And Zachary says, hey Matt, happy Sunday. I saw on Instagram a 2020 Hyundai Sonata Limited with over 346,000 miles on it with the original engine and transmission. Impressive. If Hyundai improved reliability. Yeah, I mean, there are some that do some serious miles. I mean, Hyundai did a big deal whenever there was a courier who was just hit 1 million miles in her Elantra. I think it was a couple of years ago at this point. And they gave her a new Elantra to replace that one. So, I mean, they can go the distance. Yeah, there might be a little bit more luck involved. I still personally, if I'm going to drive something for, well over 100,000 miles, I'd rather be in a Toyota or a Honda probably still. But I mean, a lot of these Hyundais do hold up really well. Some of them don't. I've seen plenty of stories about, once they're out of their powertrain warranty, once you get over 100,000 miles, some people have issues with them. I think also there's a lot of times where it comes down to maintenance. I think there's, stuff like Toyotas are a little more forgiving on maintenance because they are so robustly designed. I think maybe the Hyundai sometimes are a little bit less robust, but can still go the distance again if you really maintain them well. I think maintenance is really the thing that, you can't really prove that. You can't say, okay, well, maintenance is why this car didn't do well or did do well. But, the people that are really religious about, changing their oil exactly on time, doing the right recommended stuff, staying on top of preventative maintenance, those types of things, I think there is some of that. And, you also have to look at, how these things depreciate. Look at how Hyundais depreciate versus Toyotas. Whenever you have a 15-year-old Toyota that's still going for bigger money than a 15-year-old Hyundai is, that 15-year-old Hyundai then gets bought by someone who has a little bit less money, clearly, because they're saving their money going for the Hyundai over the Toyota. And, whenever you're trying to pinch pennies, that's when you start skimping on maintenance. And so it's kind of this snowball effect of, I think, maybe some of these later in life Hyundai owners probably aren't as, OCD about doing the maintenance as someone who maybe is babying their Toyota for 15, 20 years or whatever, and are buying it with that intent. There's some of that. Hyundais, I think, still are viewed a little bit more disposable than, Toyotas and Hondas and things like that. So there's some of that. Maybe the earlier owners just leased them, or they just were going to dump them before the powertrain warranty's up. So they skimped on stuff anyway. This is why it's really important to, check out the Carfax on whatever car you're buying used and make sure the oil changes have been done regularly. Make sure that this stuff has been stayed on top of with records. If it's not showing up on the Carfax, then they got to have receipts to back it up if they change it themselves or whatever. But like some kind of paper trail there to prove this thing has had its oil changed, like that's what gives you the confidence that, you know, whatever car you're buying can go the distance. Because I think most cars these days are very well engineered, that most of them can easily hit 200,000 miles if you're, you know, taking good care of them and all that. But because of, you know, the stuff with Hyundai sometimes being problematic later in life, this is why in my car reviews, I always say, you know, Hyundai has a 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. So it's good at least up until that point. Beyond that, you know, I've often said, you know, I'd probably rather have a Toyota or a Honda, but, you know, I think the Hyundais, you know, still can. Doesn't mean they can't go beyond 100,000 miles if you do, you know, keep up on them and treat them well, like that 346,000 mile one there. And I also, on the Mileage Impossible page on Facebook that I follow, there's a decent amount of Hyundais on there too that are, you know, telling people, hey, yeah, you know, my car has been good, and they're, you know, they're still chugging along there. It's really kind of a fun page to follow because there's some things that I even thought like, oh, that's not going to be high mileage, and people are putting really high miles on them. So there's a lot of cars that really are more impressive than you might expect. And again, it all comes down to how you treat them, I think, for a lot of it. And Raphael says, if they can't do pop-ups, some cars had covers on the lights that retracted, that would work. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of somewhat what Mazda's doing, I think, as well. But yeah, that'd be absolutely. I'd love to see retractable lights again. That'd be so cool. And Cara says, I didn't know about Cybertruck colors until now. The film is purchased on Tesla's app /online is $600 to $6,500. Colors are rose gold, forest green, abyss blue, stealth black, slip gray, and ceramic white. Okay. Well, that explains some of the colors we've been seeing. So thank you for the info there, Cars. That's good to know. At least I learned something new tonight. So thanks for looking into that for me. And very cool that there's some options there. Although $6,000 for a wrap, it's a Tesla tax, I guess. I guess people that are buying them right now, there is no problem spending $6,000 on a wrap from the factory. But Jewel says, Matt, I've always argued for that people should rent an EV on Turo just to try it for a couple of days. They may find that the hate has been unwarranted. Thanks, Kyle, for the membership renewal. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, before EVs were so politicized, like that's how Tesla owners back in the day really convinced a lot of people to also become Tesla owners. They're just like, let's go for a ride. I mean, even at Cars and Coffee, my first experience driving a Tesla was a Model S that a very kind person at Cars and Coffee said, you're going to be blown away by this thing. Like, take it for a drive. I'd never driven an electric car before. And, you know, sure enough, I was like, well, this is really cool. It's super easy to pass people. It's really fun to have that instant power. And so if you approach them with an open mind, it's so hard these days because, again, everyone has preconceived notions about them because of whatever they've seen or heard from whoever. But, you know, if you truly are just like, this is a new thing I want to try and see, you know, if it sucks or if it's great. I mean, that's like with, you know, how Beth's been saying with the Mach-E, like that's why she likes it, is the fact that there's no transmission lag. She doesn't have to wait for a downshift. It's instant power, and she likes the driving experience. It's just the driving experience. That's the exclusive reason why she has the Mach-E. She just likes the driving experience. She hated transmissions and the way they were slow to respond in her prior cars. And I mean, her cars weren't crap. I mean, her Fiesta was crap, but her two Mercedes C300s, not bad cars, but just, you know, they made you wait for downshifts. EVs don't make you do that. It's always instant right there under your foot with, you know, the acceleration. And I think, yeah, renting on Turo is a great way to try that out. Yeah, I've even encouraged some people, you know, to try it out even on, it's a little more sketchy to do it during a vacation because then you have to rely on the public charging network and all that. But absolutely, if you're near your house and you can rent one on Turo, you know, just see like, hey, look, it's kind of nice to leave every day with 100% charge or, you know, 90% or whatever you want to charge it to. And yeah, there's a lot of, you know, pros. I won't go into all that, but yeah, I agree. It's one of those things I think people would be a little bit more excited about if they actually tried it. Let me see. And it's actually kind of funny. Another little quick side story. Whenever I reviewed the 2023 Mustang Mach-1 that I reviewed about, was that like a year and a half ago now? The owner of that has a Model 3 Performance as well. And he's a biker. Like he is a Harley rider. You know, typically the demographic that would be pretty angry about EVs stereotypically speaking. And he rolled up at his one bike night in his Model 3 Performance, and people are giving him crap like, come on, man, like, why do you have an EV, blah, 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 you know, I sure brought the Mach 1 or whatever. And he's like, let me just take you for a ride. Let me just take you for a ride, then you can give me all the crap you want after that. Let me just take you for a ride. And you know, he just, I'm sure, did a 3 seconds or a 60 and these things with, you know, these biker dudes, and their mind was blown. I mean, yeah, that they probably didn't run out and buy one the next day, but like, at least gives you respect. Like, hey, this is cool, even if it's just an amusement park ride and it's a one-trick pony, it's still fun. You know, no one gets off a roller coaster and is like, oh, that sucked. You know, it's you have fun and that's it. So I think, yeah, there's definitely, I think, some common ground that can, I think, be gained there. Just again, enthusiasts that appreciate the that was fun, the adrenaline rush, like you get that, you know. And so I think that's something that I would hope a lot of people can agree on. But again, these days it's hard to hope for anyone to agree on anything. But yeah, it's I think that definitely is a cool thing when you can show people that experience. And Sean says, I just got here. What did I miss? Just some more good car talk. Happy to have you join in, Sean. Thanks for stopping by. And Jorge says 4-door Mustang. Yes to the Falcon. Yeah, yeah, I agree. That would be cool. I'd love to see Falcon come back. Just any historical name that's not related to Mach sounds good to me. Or Mustang for that matter. I mean, I guess if it's a 4-door Mustang, it's a little more okay, yeah, especially if they keep the styling and all that. But I'd love to see them actually just, yeah, make it a Falcon, do some new styling. It'd be great. Cam Jam says, I'm guilty of scrolling shorts on TV. All right, well, yeah, you are clearly, YouTube has noticed. You are not alone. There's a lot of people that do it. So again, it must be a good experience if a lot of people are doing it. So again, I should try someday and see how it is. And Brian, sorry I missed your other super chat here. Apologies to make you wait there. He says, why does Hyundai Kia think a sports car transmission DCT will match well with their Santa Cruz or other crossovers? Good question. Thank you for the super chat again. I mean, I think, you know, the dual clutch again was initially conceived for Veloster N and Elantra N. But yeah, why they made the jump to putting in everything else, I think, my guess, I don't know, but my guess would be that it's just they needed to justify the transmission, and the enthusiasts won out in that tug of war and said, well, we can put in everything else too, and then we can have our dual clutch that we want. And then they're probably like, okay, all right, fine. And that's probably the way it went. Because would they have been able to justify a dual clutch for just Elantra N and Veloster N, with Veloster not even being around anymore? Even if you said, okay, let's put it in, the sporty versions of the Sonata and the K5 and stuff, I still don't know if the volume would be there to justify it. Because, I mean, doing a brand new, dual clutch, we're not talking about buying a transmission from Eisen or ZF or something, we're talking like they built it from the ground up themselves. And so that's a lot of money. That's really hard to justify. So I'm thinking, they were assured that it would be fine in those vehicles. They went for it because, again, they wanted to see the end stuff happen and they had to make the accountants happy. That's my guess. I could be completely wrong there, but to me, that's the best explanation for why it ended up in there. Because you're right, it's not inherently a good idea to put a dual clutch in comfort-oriented vehicles unless you're doing it to a Porsche level, and Hyundai and Kia are not. It's not even close as far as the refinement and stuff. So yeah, I think that's probably the reason why. And I think this is why you're seeing them slowly phase in the torque converters for some of the stuff that used to have the dual clutch. And you're seeing, like, for example, Genesis, where they didn't cave, like all those motors of Genesis still run the 8-speed torque converter. Like they never put the dual clutch in the Genesis because I think they wanted that smoothness and they were not going to compromise on that. And that's smart. And so I think that they're saying, okay, now let's just copy the Genesis thing, and anything with a 2.5T, we can pair it up to the 8-speed auto. We can, anything with a 3.5T, we can pair up to the 8-speed auto. So for those models, it's fine. Also for the non-turbo stuff, it, matches up just fine. Obviously you can still get the 6-speed auto and the hybrids to sidestep the dual clutch there. And this is why I've been telling people, I actually just had a neighbor ask me about the Santa Fe just a couple of days ago. And I told him, look, like, the transmissions are having issues right now, those dual clutches. So I'm like, if you really want a Santa Fe, in the next few months here, I'm like, go for the hybrid version because you have the regular automatic and you get better fuel economy as well. But, that's, if you want a reliable Santa Fe right now, that'd be my best recommendation. I mean, I think there's a recall underway, and hopefully they will fix it and make it all right. But I mean, that transmission's had issues for years in the Sorrentos as well. So I'm not optimistic that they've now all of a sudden have found a fix just because it's in the Santa Fe. I'd love to be wrong. Hopefully they can sort it out. But yeah, it wasn't a great idea, especially in Santa Cruz, where you're having people potentially towing and stuff, which really wouldn't be great for the dual clutch. It's not a great combo. So I think they're going to, they're stuck in supplier agreements and stuff. So they can only weasel their way out of it so quickly. But I think that it seems like they're trying to little by little pry themselves away from the dual clutch in the mainstream stuff, especially since, Elantra N, I don't know what they're going to do with that. I mean, they could probably at this point, I guess, with the transmissions, again, been paid off or close to being paid off, they can still keep it around just for some of those things now. But they just couldn't do that before. That's my best guess. Again, I don't know. I'd love if someone else has a better theory or knows any more than I do, feel free to share. But hopefully that helps you a little bit there as far as, it's just the behind the scenes stuff of, again, trying to balance everything on paper with all the accountants and what you need to justify to make a business case or something. Let me see here. Zachary says, howdy, I'm hosting a family gathering tonight, but it looks like everyone's behaving. Happy live stream. Thanks for stopping by, Zachary, to check in. Yes, I think either Richard Simmons has found a meaning to life. It's more productive than spamming the chat here, or maybe my safeguards have worked, because I did do a couple new things, Zachary. There's a new spam filter they would put on that YouTube just kind of quietly introduced on the buried deep in a sub menu that I was able to find and enable. And I think this delay here of making people wait 15 seconds for each comment, hopefully it means I haven't seen any spammers yet, knock on wood. So hopefully everything's good. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, Zachary. I appreciate it. And I hope the family gathering continues to go really well. And have a great rest of your evening. And B. Mitchell says that auction company I mentioned before, and I were involved in filming PR footage this week. We had to do the vertical format thing for YouTube, which is a pain in the butt for a row of 5 M37 Dodge trucks. I bet you probably had to stand 3 states away in order to get those in a vertical format. I do not envy that job. That would have been tough. So hope you're able to get it done there without pulling out too much hair. Jordan says, Chad says the 2000s Chrysler 300 was based off the cartoon animation of Batman. Agree or disagree? I don't know. I mean, there's certainly some resemblance there if I'm remembering it correctly. Because I love the Batman animated series. I grew up on that, one of my favorite shows as a kid. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's, the concept that came before it that was pretty bold and then got watered down. I don't know. It's certainly possible. I think Chrysler also just were kind of going after, the Bentley and the Rolls Royce vibe, and that inspired it a lot as well. But it could totally be based off of that too. Who knows? I'm sure there's some of that they probably won't admit to, but stuff that certainly inspires things. I mean, you look at all the cars and say, oh, this was inspired by the Batmobile, or this is a rich futuristic Bruce Wayne's Batmobile. So maybe you hear that thrown around all the time. I've used that myself in various ways in the past, on reviews as well. But I think that, there is some of that. Also, another one, actually, now that it's coming back to me, is, the whole Darth Vader thing. We see this with, half these Hyundais look like Darth Vader's mask now. That's another media thing that has influenced it. But also, again, this is kind of like a not so often talked about S550 thing. When they did the S550 refresh for the Mustang in 2018, they actually said it. They admitted it was inspired by Darth Vader's mask there. And there was an actual sketch they had, I think, with the mask, and then how it inspired the V's in the front of the front bumper for the 2018 Mustang. And that was another inspiration. So I think a lot of Star Wars inspirations, you can see. And I mean, even Nissan has the actual tie-in with Star Wars and stuff. So some of their stuff, has those kinds of inspirations. There's a lot of that. Basically, I think, you have to look to movies for futurism because, I mean, obviously designers are plenty creative on their own, but, you see what's popular futurism and what what do people want the future to look like? Do they want it to look like Cybertrucks? If they do, then maybe we'll see more people try and copy that kind of stuff. If they really want to go for this bold futuristic thing, maybe just light bars in the front of traditional things is futuristic enough for some people. You know, there's always different degrees that companies are willing to go to, but I think there's a lot of that is certainly inspired by the popular media stuff, I guess, for sure. Robert, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, digging the shirt, Matt. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had a whole wedding weekend. My sister-in-law got married, and we went to a Hawaiian restaurant for brunch today. So just figured I'd roll with it and keep on wearing it here. So yeah, it's super comfortable. It's like silky, and it's like one of those comfortable shirts I have. So I'm just gonna stick with it, and just keep on wearing it here. But appreciate that. He says, do you think Suede Alcantara is one of the biggest scams in the auto industry? I don't want to call it a scam, because I mean, clearly there's a lot of people that like it and are happy to have it, that do think it is an upgrade. And for some people, it might be if you are actually doing track driving or something very intense where you need the extra grippiness. There are certain advantages to Alcantara for sure. But yeah, the fact that it's been marketed as a premium thing when it is in fact cheaper to do than leather. I mean, it's synthetic. There's also some gains there. It's not using animal hides, so it's a little bit greener to do those types of things as well. So there's some of that. But I think Porsche was kind of the first to show their hand, and then they wised up and realized that they were kind of probably hurting themselves a little bit by, like you looked at like base Macans for a while, they came with like an Alcantara, like that was the base interior. And even you look at like a Mazda CX-5, I don't think you can get a regular cloth seat in that. Or maybe you do in the very base trims, but like the mid-grade and lower trims, it's like an Alcantara type suede microfiber middle, and then you have leather on the sides or faux leather on the sides or whatever. But even like it's cheaper to do the microfiber than even faux leather. And so but Porsche for a while, like base Macans had like Alcantara, and then they finally were like, oh wait, we should start charging people extra for this because they for some reason think this is an upgrade over leather. And again, everyone likes something different. So if you think that's an upgrade, by all means, go enjoy your Alcantara, and no judgment here. But yeah, I don't like it at all. But it is, it's cheaper to make. So they're absolutely making more of a profit off of Alcantara. And then when they market it as this big upgrade, they're just adding cash on top of their cash, but yeah, it's really tough how pervasive it is in the auto industry, though, because that was another reason why, for example, with Beth and I, when we were shopping for cars for her, like we like the Volvo, the XC40 Recharge, but that only had Alcantara. Like there was no way to get a full leather or even like a faux leather or even like cloth. Because Alcantara is, if you have kids, it is so hard to clean. It's so hard to scrub out and clean stuff off of it versus, leather. It's just quick, just wipe it off, done deal. It's super, super easy. And so, that was like, there's quite a few cars like that where we were like, oh, this might be interesting. It's like, oh wait, only Alcantara, never mind. And I also just, again, especially if it's not perforated, it gets hot. It really, leather also gets hot. So I don't think it burns you quite as bad as leather does, but it just does not breathe. And that's the thing with my first gen BRZ, that thing like had the non-perforated Alcantara, and man, I would get so hot in that seat. It was like, I was just sweating like crazy. It just did not breathe. These days, most of them have the perforation, which certainly helps. But I also see, been doing this asking, do I miss the 2013 BRZ? I just saw that right in the vicinity here. But I miss that car. I think the new one is way better. So if I were ever nostalgic for BRZs, I just go buy the new one. It's so much better. It fixes all my complaints with the first gen. I think what I miss about the BRZ was that it was just a different time in my life. And so I miss those memories. And I just have a lot of good memories of when I had nothing better to do but cruise around until 2 a.m, racing around with all my buddies, and, just those types of memories. And for that reason, that's all intermingled with the BRZ. So there's some nostalgia there from that. But the car itself, it was kind of, I really loved it, but it was also a love-hate relationship. If you followed that whole journey, I did a whole video series of like, I don't love the BRZ yet. And I was even contemplating a month or two into ownership, trading it in for a Mustang even back then, because I just always had that love for the Mustang. And I eventually, the car won me over and I stuck with it for, a couple of years there. But, I loved it, and I do miss it. But, yeah, it would have been a car, even if I did end up keeping it, for 10 years or something. I would have absolutely, the second I drove the new BRZ, I would have dropped it like a hot rock and immediately got into the new one, because the new one is, again, so much better. But yeah, I do certainly miss it in certain aspects. And let me see other questions here. So Raphael says, my Sonata had 190,000 miles, completely trouble-free when I traded it in for my Camry. Oil changes and scheduled maintenance. That's it. Yeah, well, appreciate the extra bit of confirmation there on that, and glad that you had one that treated you really well. That's great. E60 says, one of my friends picked up a 2007 Acura MDX. He took the muffler off, and it sounded very good. Crackles and pops a lot, and also has a new engine, as the previous owner didn't do oil changes on it. Man, same thing with the oil changes. That's so important. It's crazy how many people skip out on that. And this is another reason, very briefly, why EVs, I think, will eventually take off, because people hate doing oil changes and maintenance at all. And aside from swapping tires and brakes every very once in a blue moon, you never have to do anything with it. I think the amount of people you tell them no more oil changes, that alone is going to be enough to, I think, have a lot of people be like, sure, I'll deal with charging, but never have to worry about an oil change again. But that's funny about the MDX, though. I've never heard a no muffler MDX. Must be a fun experience. And Jordan says, do you think Stellantis is sleeping on the resurgence of the Viper EV ICE PHEV? I think that Stellantis has bigger fish to fry right now. Because they have, their kind of supercars and stuff with like the MC20, from Maserati and stuff. And even that, I don't think is a super hot seller. I haven't seen any detailed sales numbers, but they just don't seem like they're very common. Maybe that's by design. I don't know if they're deliberately capping production on those or what. But yeah, I think, especially, if we're talking EV, maybe there's a little more openness in the Viper crowd compared to the Charger crowd. But Stellantis, as we've been seeing the past couple of months here with them talking about how they're going to maybe kill stuff off, and how they're, just like Jeep sales are tanking. Everything's just priced too high. They're slashing prices on stuff. Dodge Hornets aren't moving. They have a lot of big problems right now. And I don't even think the word Viper has probably entered the Michigan headquarters of Dodge or Stellantis at all, in a long time, at least not in the past few years, just because, they're kind of, I wouldn't say they're in survival mode. They're a huge company and they'll be fine once they find their footing. But they, they're struggling right now. And it's sad because, it's like almost like the Chrysler curse or something, where, they had all the, stuff, or they've had all these consolidations and, change of ownership over the years, and all the, stuff that's happened with various owners, and getting packaged up and sold off in various ways and all that. And, it's just like they've always been kind of passed around to these various corporations and turn into these bigger and bigger things just to try and survive. And so I'd love to see a new Viper someday, but I don't think there's anything, especially if you already have Charger. It's a little big. Maybe if you could stuff the Charger Banshee, electric thing that I think they're saying is going to be close to 1,000 horsepower in its top version ultimately at some point. If you can stuff that in something more aerodynamic and smaller and lighter, maybe you see something like that for Viper. There's no way they're going to be able to make any kind of new V10 or bring the old one out of retirement or anything like that. So it's just like, if you're not going to do it then why bother at all anyway? So I think, again, they got their work out for them with convincing people on Charger. I think, Viper is pretty far off in the distance. And Jordan Carguy says, people tend to underestimate the amount of miles my Magnum has done, probably because I keep it as clean as I can. and that certainly helps too. Just keeping up on that helps. Keep the body in good shape and all that, which is another thing that kills a lot of cars that otherwise had long lives ahead of them. Slam saying South Park Harley episode. I don't think I've ever seen that one. I'll have to check that one out. It sounds like something I would enjoy. So thanks for the tip, Slam saying. I'll check that out. And see the other super chats came in. Sorry to make you guys wait. Sean, thank you for a super chat. He says, nostalgia for single life. Know the feeling. I mean, it's not so much. A lot of it was, cruising around with Beth as well. So there's some of that too. It's just, the, I mean, even, with our daughter, there's not even so much of that. It's just, again, honestly, it's just work. It's really just keeping this channel going is the thing that's been all consuming. Back in those days, I could do one video a week and, pay the bills. Obviously, I have more bills these days than I did back then. But, even whenever it was, even just 5, 6, 7 years ago, I could do one car review a week and, get way more views, way more ad revenue. And it was a lot more low pressure than it is these days. So now it's just having to work twice as hard, double the videos literally, and double the work as a result. And that's just, again, to tread water and keep things going. And even that hasn't been perfect because, again, I had to sell the bullet and stuff to stay afloat here. So there's just some of that too. Just having a healthier work-life balance, I think, is the thing I'm most nostalgic for. And hopefully someday, again, I get back to that. But again, the way YouTube's going, it's, every day there's a new competitor popping up and taking views away from the rest of us. And again, it's all an equal opportunity thing. Let the best rise to the top, and the ones that can't compete drop off. And, we'll see again how that all plays out. But there's some nostalgia for just being younger and having less to worry about, less things to do, and just a simpler life. I think we can all kind of relate to that in some ways. And Raphael, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, got to get to bed. I'll miss oil changes. I go to the Toyota dealer. They walk me to a seat and bring me coffee. Nice. I'm glad you have a good experience. I know a lot of people don't, so that's kind of why I kind of said that. But yeah, I mean, there's some dealers that do take really good care of people. I know even when we had Beth's Mercedes, I mean, their service department was really great. Always did a good job taking care of us and all that. But just it's the time factor, for people who are busy, don't have the luxury of hanging out in a showroom and drinking a coffee all morning or whatever. I mean, it's an hour or something. It's not all morning, but there's some of that. I think that's always been the biggest pain point for me, is just having to be like, okay, I have to screw up my morning to go do this thing that I otherwise wouldn't have to do. Is kind of the main thing there. That's a drawback sometimes, but, anyway, hope you have a great week, Raphael, and thanks so much for stopping by and for the super chat once again. And let me see other member questions here. So Raphael says he doesn't care for shorts, but I do like watching YouTube on TV. Yeah, that certainly, I think, is only going to keep getting, growing more and more, again, especially as people get burned out on all the streamers. Good success. Speaking of bad dual clutch, you should review an E60 M5 and experience the SMG. You'll be ranting all day about how crap it is. I did actually review an E60 M5. That was, I think it was in 2019, 2020, maybe 2021, something like that. I did do one. If you look up, I can't remember the exact model year, but if you search E60 M5 on the channel, I did do one. They're fantastic, and I did an E39 as well. The same guy that owned both of them. They're fantastic. I actually have had a decent amount of experience in my past life with the BRZ and stuff racing around. I had a former friend that had an M6 with that same SMG. It was slow. it was definitely slow. I mean, for the time, it wasn't quite as horrible as it is by modern standards, but it was always slow. And there's even one time I think his overheated at one point, and just, it was not super robust, but they sounded great. And so all was forgiven, outside of that. And Austin says, hey man, have you ever driven an Alpha 4C Spider? I feel like they're kind of slept on. Kind of, yeah. So I did a quick drive on one. It was just a quick little 10-minute drive whenever I was on a drive event where it was one of these things where you were in and out of a car every 20 minutes or whatever, that I used to do back in the day. So if you search on the channel for 4C Spider, you should be able to see that, and I give my impressions and my reactions and acceleration, all that. But never had one in for a full review. I tried so hard to get one there in the media fleets, and that just never happened. But I think it's cool. It's a cool little car. Again, had some reliability issues from what I've seen. It's a little more temperamental, but I think it's been popping up. I think it was Haggerty or someone named it as like one of the top candidates to be like a future classic, like big money classic someday. Because they are super cool. I agree. I mean, it has a carbon fiber tub. It's very just very exotic, I guess, for the price tag. And yeah, the Spider version makes it even better. So yeah, I do agree they're kind of slept on. I think it would have been a whole lot better with a manual, though. It's a shame they only had it with the dual clutch there and that. But they're cool cars. I really enjoyed it. Again, it wasn't the most polished experience from my memory. There were some things there that certainly could have used improvement, but 4C was great. I'd love to revisit it someday and review one again at some point. But yeah, check out the quick drive there. It's probably, again, at this point, 7 years ago or something that I probably drove it. But it was a yellow one, and it was fantastic. It was my favorite car I drove that day, and I drove a lot of stuff that day, I remember. But let me see. B. Mitchell says, yep, I was narrating. The crew had me stand 6 feet in front of them while they were 30 feet away from the trucks. Probably will have a lot of ceiling and gravel of the building they were parked in. Yep. That's the vertical way. That's funny. Jordan says, the red Cadillac picture on your shelf, is that a concept rendition? Yeah, so that is a concept, or a sketch, I should say, for the Black Wings. Cadillac, whenever they announced their 20-year celebration of the Black Wings, or the V-series stuff, they sent me a gift box. I think I showed it in a past live stream whenever I first got it. I kind of opened it up, and it had, I think it was like a scarf, a hat, and then that sketch. So I put that up there. It's just kind of a cool little thank you. They just said, like, thanks for your support of the V brand or whatever. And so it just was like kind of a cool, nice little thing. Again, those types of things. Yeah, it's a lot of people be like, oh, see, like you're getting gifts from Cadillac and stuff. But like to me, it just was like, oh, cool, thanks. And I'm still gonna talk crap if the next Cadillac I drive is garbage. But it's just a nice little appreciation thing, though, for sure. To be like, hey, we appreciate your coverage over the years. Here's a little gift box. So I just, that's a really cool thing to have a little sketch there. So I decided to put it up on the wall there. And maybe someday, maybe that can be like a member post or something. I can do a little close-up picture of it. I think I showed it at some point, but I can definitely do another picture to get a close-up look at that. And Justin says, nice. How do you like the Hawaiian restaurant? Just curious because I'm from the islands and Hawaiian barbecue is my favorite food. Nice. That's awesome. The restaurant was pretty good. It was in West Virginia. But it's pretty good. It's as authentic as you can get for Hawaiian food in West Virginia. But yeah, it was really good. And I was in Hawaii last year, with Toyota for the Grand Highlander launch. That was we were on Kona for that, and that's my first time ever in Hawaii, and I loved it. I desperately want to go back. I want to live there. I just I fell in love with it. I traveled to a lot of cool places, especially for this job, but that one was hard to leave. And we had the whole luau thing where they had legit Hawaiian barbecue and did all that for us. When they launched the Tacoma last year, I had a big party. And it was Toyota, so they did it up right. So that was really good Hawaiian barbecue, and I'm hoping was a pretty legit experience there. It's so good. I absolutely love it. If I ever won the lottery or something someday, I'd probably at least have a house in Hawaii. But it's so sad, with the fires and just the insane pricing just going through the roof on everything, and pricing the people that have lived there for generations, they're not able to even afford to stay there. It's I wish there was a good solution for that, because that seems kind of unfortunate. So I have very conflicted feelings about tourism in Hawaii and stuff, because I feel like it I just hope that it does actually, benefit the right people. But I absolutely love the place. It's beautiful, and the people again were so wonderful as well. So I'd love to come back. Beth had been there before me and her were together, but she desperately wants to go back as well. And we would love to bring our daughter as well someday and hang out in Hawaii because it's magical place. And Two's in the house. Thanks for joining in, Two. Thank you for the super chat. He says, finally out of the basement. So I've been doing Uber in the California Bay Area. It's not even exciting to see supercars anymore. Today I saw a Jimny, though, and I see you're shilling for Toyota today. Absolutely. You know it, Two. Thanks for stopping by. I always appreciate your comments. And that's crazy, though, about seeing the Jimny. I have never seen one in person, I don't think. Maybe I saw one at the LA Auto Show last year. They might have had one that like someone was showing off or something, but that's cool. I'm curious if it was like on plates and how they got it here. I saw there was a few for sale, and I'm not sure. They said that it was like legit, but I'm like, there's no way it's legitimately over here. But that's cool you saw one, and it's cool you're seeing supercars, even if you're numb to it at this point. Hopefully Ubering in California Bay Area isn't too bad, and hopefully you're enjoying it. But thanks for stopping by and saying hi, and hopefully at least get some fun driving experiences. And I always love being behind the wheel, so hopefully you at least enjoy that component of it. TFIPW says probably from Mexico. If that did they sell in Mexico? I didn't know if they did, but that probably makes total sense. And if that's what it is, just a Mexican plate or something like that. And let me see here. B. Mitchell saying the same thing there. He said I had one turn up at an auction 2 years ago. Interesting. Yeah, so sad that Suzuki left at the wrong time, because they would have stuck around. They could have sold it here. I guess they still couldn't have because of the chicken tax, right? I don't know, but I hope someone finds some way to bring them over someday. I mean, if nothing else, sounds like VinFast is going to kind of do a knockoff of the VF3, and that could potentially be a big hit too for people who want to kind of scratch that itch and they don't mind an electric vehicle. That could be kind of a cool alternative. B. Mitchell also says Porsche would charge extra for oil in the crankcase if they get away with it. Absolutely. Austin says, I hear GM is investing $918 million in 4 U.S. facilities for V8 engine production and EV components. Guess the EV is going to live on for a while yet. Absolutely. Yeah. So this was, I think, last year, whenever the union stuff was being worked out and all the negotiations for that. And I think there was even something before that. One of my updates was something about how like GM is committed to the V8s because it kind of confirmed in a roundabout way that the next generation Corvette will still have V8 power. I think they also confirmed that even if they do still stick to their 2035 switch over to EVs, they basically committed to doing electric or doing V8 gas powered like Yukons, Tahoes, stuff like that right up until 2035, if not beyond that. And also, all these, even again, if these companies do stick to these goals, which again, we're seeing a lot of that is being backtracked, even if GM does stick to that 2035 thing, that I don't think includes heavy duty stuff. So that, means Silverado HD's off the hook, all those types of things, which will still, a lot of people will still want those with V8 power. So absolutely. I never thought the V8 was going away anytime soon, especially from GM. Anyone that made you think that, definitely not based in reality. GM's been saying for many years this entire time V8 is going to stick around, and they had those investments in those new factories for that. So that's absolutely happening. They're keeping the V8 around a long time, not going away anytime soon. It's mostly just, again, the performance car stuff, things like that. But even that, again, we're seeing Ford's able to keep it around with the Mustang and stuff. So again, it's mostly just about trying to get the emissions down for a fleet average. If GM brings these EVs in to kind of even that out, and you have the trucks being kind of a different category that's less stringent, you have plenty of leeway there to keep doing those things. So, yep, no one's coming for the V8s just yet. Good Stick says, what's one car that you think are good cars but get treated worse than rental cars and cars that deserve more respect? I think I think one of the cars, honestly, it's unfortunate, but the Model 3 is a really good car. It's really well done. It's a ton of space for the size that it is. It's good performance. They're pretty reliable. They're safe. Yeah, build quality is certainly not great. So it's not perfect, but they're so dirt cheap now in the used market, and again, they're just so common that they are overlooked, and no one cares about a Model 3 anymore for the most part because they're just so everywhere. And when anything's like that, it's kind of they're a victim of their own success, and then they just get they're not special at all anymore. Same with Model Y because it's the best selling vehicle in the world last year. So if everyone's got one, it's not special anymore. But it doesn't mean it's not a good vehicle. They're fantastic vehicles, from an objective standpoint. And then again, now with Elon making everything more polarizing, that's further draining what is also, again, still a really good car. And people that would have considered it now aren't because of, the way that he's polarized the company. And so honestly, I think, yeah, Tesla, I think they make some really good stuff. And people love to beat up on them as well because of, some of the stuff you see. But I mean, you look at the safety record of them, at least people that actually drive them and aren't using autopilot and full self-driving, I guess I should say. But, when you're actually driving them and, you're, paying attention and stuff, like they're really safe. They're really good cars. And yeah, so I think that's probably, to me, that's the top one. I mean, I could probably ramble off a few others, but to me, I think it's those. And it gets a shame because, I mean, I was really impressed. I reviewed a Model 3 Performance, many years ago. Really loved it. Thought it was great. I've always been impressed with all the Teslas that I've reviewed. They're really good cars, but I think it's just they're really being dragged down right now, and especially the most common ones like the Model 3 and the Y. They're a lot better than people might realize. This is why, I mean, they sell so many of them. So clearly people do give them respect because they buy in them in droves still. But I think now they're so cheap. And again, just the polarization there just doesn't help. But they also go a lot of miles. There's a lot of people that Uber in those, and they're doing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles on them, no problem. So I think that's probably the top one in my mind. Danny says, "Hey Matt, I'm here and I'm happy to be, and saw a Subaru Legacy GT Spec B yesterday and thought it was cool. It's aka called the Grandpa STI. Yeah, I remember hearing that a few times back when I had mine, and yeah." That car, I actually think I missed that more than the BRZ. I mean, the BRZ certainly I had a lot of love for as well, but the Spec B, like, that is the car I owned in my college years, and that nostalgia for that time period, and the more carefree nature of being young and just again being able to go drive around for the fun of it for hours on end and having a lot of free time and stuff is something I miss. But that car was fantastic. That's really, I think, the car that turned me into a lover of Grand Tours, because that car I traded in at the dealership that I was working at the time, and I was gonna buy a WRX. I always wanted a 2006 WRX. That was my goal. I was saving up 20 grand or enough down payment to finance a car, buy something for 20 grand. And my goal was to get, a used WRX. That was a year or two old at that point. And then this Legacy GT Spec B got traded in for 20 grand, a car that was $36,000 the year before. The dude got absolutely destroyed on the trade-in. I feel bad, but I benefited because I was able to pick up a really sweet car for 20 grand. And I'm glad that I did, because otherwise I would have never even given that car a second look. But I'm like, well, this thing's got actually more horsepower than the WRX I wanted. It's got red leather seats, it's got navigation, which was, a big perk in 2007. Was just really cool. And also it's one of 500. I mean, for that to be the first car that I bought myself was just, really cool. So I do miss that car, and I'm sad that I've kind of lost track of that one, because I knew who owned it up until like last year. And then the person who owned it, they ended up losing it through a relationship falling out that happened. And so now I have no clue what happened to that car. So I'm hoping someday I'll run a Carfax on it here sooner or later, and just try and be nosy and see if I can figure out, what happened to it, and hope I don't see a salvage title or something like that on it. But I mean, it's definitely, it's far from where it was when I had it. I kept it mostly stock. I just put a blow-off valve and an exhaust on it, and that's pretty much it. But the second owner put a bigger turbo on it, did a custom tune and all that. And then the third owner yanked the steering wheel out, put a Nardi wheel in it, kind of slammed it on some coilovers, did some more stuff. But it was still in really nice shape, though. She took really good care of it, and then it just ended up getting lost there somehow. So, yeah, I may reach out to and see if she has any new info, but I don't really bother her about it because it seemed like it was a sore topic. So I just kind of left it. So I might run a Carfax first and see what it turns up, because I do miss that car and I hope it's still out there doing okay. And Austin says, nostalgia is a strong force for my purchases, automotive and otherwise. Absolutely. It is definitely one of the strongest forces, I think, as far as marketing goes. Jordan says, Zone 8, Milton, Florida here. The gear shift of our 2015 Ford Fusion is starting to melt, considering a windshield shade. Had this car since 2017. Climate change is real. Yeah, I mean, the numbers as far as what we're all experiencing hopefully speaks for itself. Hurricane season starting sooner. I mean, I won't get into the whole climate change thing. Other people have other explanations for that, I suppose. But that's crazy. Your gear shift starting to melt, though. That's nuts. Yeah, windshield shades, definitely great. I'm not sure if you're in Florida, hopefully you already have window tint on your windshield, because that's allowed there, right? So I would definitely tint all your windows with a good tint that actually does good heat rejection. That was what I loved about the Expel tint, is it does like super good heat rejection. Again, there's other brands out there that do as well, but just get one that's got really good heat rejection just to give you the best chance possible. And yeah, absolutely, windshield shade, everything you can do to get that any kind of shade you can find. That's crazy though, the melt. I'm sure like Truck and Car Guys in Arizona, and he's talking about these 118-degree days and stuff, so I'm sure he can commiserate with you there. But yeah, thankfully the hottest we got here this summer was a couple of days in the mid 90s. I think that was basically, we haven't even hit 100 here in Pittsburgh, thankfully, so fairly mild compared to the rest of the country, I think. And Dylan says, I haven't heard from my dealer rep about Viper EV at all. Yeah, I wouldn't expect to hear about that for sure. And Jorge says, haven't been here in a while. Has Beth made any guest appearances? No, she hasn't been on for many months now, but she'll probably come back here relatively soon. Hopefully sometime in the next couple of weeks here, maybe she'll stop by for an appearance, because she does miss it, and she's been wanting to get back. So hopefully here sometime soon she can. Just lots of other stuff she's got to handle, once the toddler's asleep. But Danny says, my dad, when I was born in 2008, had a two-door 97 or 98 Cavalier, and he got rid of it due to the pain of putting a car seat in the back seat of the Cavalier with it being a two-door. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of two-doors that get sacrificed in the name of family, and it's doable, but yeah, it's tough. I know, like one of my friends had a S550 Mustang, and he for a little while there was putting a car seat in the back of his, and then just was like, I can't do it. I can say the new owner of the Bullet, they do have a car seat in the back of it, and they are the very cool dad that shows up and picks up their kid from daycare and preschool and all that, and they're in the Bullet. So it is currently doing that duty, and I'm very excited that it's being used that way, and it can be fun for the whole family. So, but that's sad your dad had to get rid of it there, and hope he can maybe get back into another one someday. And Spy Harpy says, owned an 86 Integra with Vector alloys, each side spun in the same direction, meaning a reverse design. I like that. Don't see this anymore. Cars look odd with opposite spinning wheels on each side. Interesting. Honestly, something I never even really paid too much attention to, but that's cool. And 86 Integra, that was one of those early ones. That's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to drive an original Integra. I don't think I've ever driven the original Integras. I'd love to try one someday. They seem like great cars. And let me see. So Danny says my dad also bought the Cavalier brand new in 97 or 98. That's awesome. It's hopefully treated him better than my dad's Ford Tempo treated him. Some of the American stuff for those times weren't the best, but some of them were pretty good. Some of those old GM vehicles actually did have a pretty good reliability rating. And a good six says, I was driving to an air show and a white Honda CR-V cut me off at high speed. I had to stomp on the brakes very hard. What's with people driving normal cars that makes them do really stupid decisions? I think it's just driving in general. It's just it's a variety of factors. I mean, we all, I'm sure, can go on tangents about this we observe every day. But I think, a lot of the case is also just people. I think cars have just gotten so easy to drive. It used to be that, whether you had a manual transmission or you just had a car that was a little bit more demanding from you. Nowadays, I mean, cars are so easy to drive, and with all the driver assists and stuff, they really can kind of give you some guardrails there that otherwise didn't exist in the past. And I think that a lot of people just also, cars have gotten so fast and speed limits have pretty much for the most part stayed the same as they've been for the past few decades. In some places the same speed limits we've had since like the 50s. But I think it's just a lot of people are just bored, especially on the highway. I mean, if you're on, like, even today, I was driving from West Virginia into PA, and it's like 70, and then you go into a PA, and like a few miles into PA you go to 55, and like going from even just 70 to 55. I mean, I don't do exactly 55, but slowing down from what I was doing in a 70 zone to what I'm doing in a 55 zone, it just feels like you're crawling. And when you feel like you're crawling, that's when you're more inclined to be like, okay, well, I'm bored out of my mind. I can do this in my sleep. Let me sit here and scroll on my phone. Let me do this and that. And then you get overconfident with your abilities, and then you end up, in a ditch or whatever. So like, I think that there's also some of that. I think cars have almost gotten too good for their own good in some ways, again, because people just aren't as engaged in the experience anymore. This is why I think, I reported in the weekly update recently that we're seeing an uptick in manual transmission sales among like 18 to 24-year-olds. And a lot of it, I think it was the CarMax dealer said that a lot of these parents are very supportive of their kids wanting a manual, because it means, okay, they're engaged in the driving experience. They're paying attention to what's going on. They oftentimes have one less hand to text with. If you're working a gear shift and a steering wheel, you're not going to be on your phone as much. And so, I mean, absolutely, as a parent, I would totally agree. If my kid wanted a manual, absolutely 100%, I would encourage that, because, it's just less of that, opportunity, and then also you're hoping they're in an engaging car that maybe is more fun to, pay attention in versus some, boring appliance. So, yeah, there's I think that's part of it as well. In addition to just people just getting crazier and more aggravated and shorter tempered, and that causes them to do crazy things as well. So yeah, it's just another symptom of the society we live in. B. Mitchell says the Jimny, probably had Mexican plates. Yeah, sorry, I missed that. I already saw that comment earlier. And 2 says had California plates, wasn't a new one, and I was in the Bay today. I wasn't in the Bay today. Gotcha. Interesting. So it's an old Jimny. Is that what you're saying? Maybe it's what I'm missing here. So like so like a 25-year one, maybe they're bringing in now or something like that, like the Samurais kind of deal. Yeah, those are all really fun little vehicles. I miss the days when those things were everywhere. The little, Chevy Tracker, Geo Tracker, all those variations of those things. Excuse me, were cool to see all around back in the day. And Good Six says, I even had a friend in a Miata nearly get sideswiped from a guy that didn't pay attention to the road. Man, yeah. And this is why, I know there's some people here that enjoy riding motorcycles, but for me, it's like these kinds of things are why, if someone's going to be an idiot and hit into me, I want to have metal and airbags and every safety feature imaginable to try and give me the best odds, because it's crazy out there. And that's why I love Miatas, and I still would own one if I could get away with not having a back seat, and I could justify having, a fun car again. But, it's just like in this world of everyone having an F-150, it's not a good feeling being in a Miata when you're up against these gigantic cars, especially being driven by psychos that, can't be bothered to pay attention or are paying attention or just roid raging or whatever the case is. It's just like, yeah, it's crazy. So I'm sure, again, we all get to see those kinds of experiences all the time. B. Mitchell says that Jimny and OKC didn't impress me at all. Inspecting it inside and out, it came off as a cheapened Jeep Compass, if you can fathom that. Yeah, I think it's just probably the exterior styling and kind of wins a lot of people over, and it's cheap. I think that there's such an untapped potential for like good cheap cars, I think, in this country right now, that people would really latch onto if they had some good options. I mean, I think again, you can be argued that there are a few good options, but stuff with real personality like the Jimny, I think could just do incredibly well if I could find a way to bring them here legally. And David says Model 3 performance is a lot of bang for your buck in the used market here in Seattle. Yeah, it's great value everywhere, and even new. I mean, they do what, like a 3.3 seconds 0 to 60 now for the Highland version, and it's what, 45 grand. I mean, I said this when they came out in the weekly update. I'm like, if you want to have the fastest thing in a straight line for the best straight line performance per dollar, new Model 3 performance is the way to go. Again, there's other baggage, unfortunately, with Tesla, but like, if none of that bothers you, absolutely, it's not even like anything else comes close, honestly, as far as the value there. And let me see. David says, I rented a RAV4 hybrid and loved it. Nice. So I'm glad you're able to try one out. I'm glad you liked it. And yeah, they're really good at what they do. I'm curious to see what they do with this next generation. I mean, I'm guessing, it's going to probably just have Camry stuff, copy and pasted, be all hybrid, most likely. And but yeah, Toyota does a great job with their hybrids for sure. I'm glad you liked it. And Good Stick says, I remember when I was a kid, my dad had a 2005 Nissan Quest. It was literally a 7-seat 350Z. It had the same VQ 35 DE from the 350Z. True, but I believe, if I remember correctly, they had the CVT, so that would definitely dampen the experience a good bit there. But yeah, they put that VQ in everything for a while. I mean, it was in all kinds of stuff. And I always thought that was a cool motor. I thought it sounded good. I know, like, Jeremy Clarkson back in the day complained about it and stuff, but I always liked the VQ. I always thought it was a really cool sound. It had a cool rasp to it, and just, yeah, I always loved them. David says, thanks. I'm an autocrosser. The Camry TRD would be an odd choice, but the stock wheels are 8.5 width. Nice. Yeah. Camry TRD is great, though. They're a lot of fun, too. And I'm sure, yeah, there's probably not too many new ones out there now with the new 25s being everywhere. But we'll see what they do with the new gen version. I hope they do some type of Camry TRD, or at least the Camry Prime or something to give us some kind of more powerful version. Would be nice. But we will see, because they might not feel a need to if they're selling tons of these regular ones. I see so many of these new Camrys. I don't think there's ever been like a new debut car that I saw so quickly proliferate the everywhere I go. Even if I'm not in Pittsburgh, like I went to DC a couple months ago, even at that point in time saw tons of them everywhere. I was in West Virginia, I saw a bunch here this past weekend. It's like they are popping up everywhere, and it's impressive. It's finally a new Toyota that they're actually building in decent numbers, and people are buying them up like crazy. It's great. So yeah, it's I hope they do something to go with the new Camry for a performance version, maybe. And Truck and Car Guy says, yeah, it's been like 110 and higher lately here in Arizona. Though today it was a lot cooler as it rained last night. Nice. Well, I'm glad you got a little bit of a break there. He says, also, I can relate with the window tint issue. Nice. Austin says, hey, Matt, my friend with a GR Corolla is getting a little worried after all these unexplained fires occurring. Do you have any advice for him? So, I mean, the one thing is, you have a new car warranty. So as long as you aren't doing anything to void that warranty in a legit way. I mean, there's been some stuff about like the warranty was voided because they said they were shown going over 85 miles per hour or something. A lot of that stuff, I think there's more to those stories than sometimes gets put out there. But, the bottom line is, if you aren't, I mean, I guess it's a little unfair because, a lot of people, I mean, these cars are built to be tracked, but especially if you are just like using it as a daily driver, a fun spirited vehicle, and you keep it, mostly stock, aside from things that wouldn't affect the warranty, you should be taken care of. And if you're not, then make a big stink. Let me know about it. I'll make a big stink for you. I'm not afraid to let it happen if there's some BS going on and it's a legit claim. But there's been some stuff too where like some of these stories get a lot of press, and then it turns out that like some of it, like was actually on the owner, and they just didn't want to be, held responsible for that. I think like one of the things with the GR86 in the past few years with this new one like someone was all mad because it blew up on track. But then like it came out that basically they were sitting at red line for multiple minutes, and that's why it blew up. Now, obviously, they should have still engineered it, to say, well, the red line is the red line, and you can sit at red line all day and be okay. You would like to think there'd be that durability there. But, in a case like that, it's like, well, what are you doing sitting at red line for minutes on end? Like, I actually talked to my good friend Eric from RevMatch TV. We actually chatted with him a good bit about this with the GR Corollas, because he's in the GR86 Cup with not the Cup car version of that, but he uses his own GR86 in the competition. He tracks it like, I think he does it almost every weekend, and is really hammering hard on his. And I asked him, like, are you concerned about this? Like, you're around all these people who are tracking these things hard, including yourself. Like, how do you feel about it? And he's like, he's like, I'm not worried about it at all. So that held a lot of weight to me. And if your friend also, I definitely check out RevMatch TV's channel. I think he's done some coverage on this and kind of shared his thoughts in videos. He's very knowledgeable about it and can probably dive into the specifics of why he's not worried more so than I can, just again reciting our conversation from a few months back. But when he was like, I'm not concerned, that kind of put me at ease. Because obviously I want the car to do well, but if it's a genuine lemon or something, or it's just a not well engineered, like I'm not gonna be supporting a car that's screwing people over essentially. But he was like, no, like, he's like, I beat on mine hard, we all beat on ours hard in this series, and we're all fine. It's, you got to make sure you're doing things the right way, especially if you're driving them that hard. You got to do oil changes more often, you got to keep up on things. And so some of these people maybe are new to this hobby or something, and they're just not familiar with what you need to do, and maybe there's some of that kind of gets them caught off guard or something. But yeah, I'm personally not worried. If it makes any difference, I would say that I would still, if I needed a 4-door all-wheel drive car and I could afford a GR Corolla, I'd go out and buy one tomorrow. Honestly, like my brother-in-law who sells Toyotas, they have a red GR Corolla Core coming in, a 24, and I'm like, man, I wish I could find a way to justify it. If I had disposable cash, I could probably just justify the fact that it's a 4-door, it's more practical than the Bullet, and I'd probably like find some BS way to justify it in my own mind. But I don't even have the money, so it's not even something I'm entertaining seriously. But I'm like, man, like I really, really want to take that one off his hands. So that's all I can say. I also, I can't say anything. I know something I'm not able to say, but I will say that there will be more coverage on GR Corollas that I think will help the community in the future, in the relatively near future. There's just hopefully going to maybe cover that a little bit more. And also Savage Geese is doing a great job kind of covering this stuff with their ownership series that they've been doing with the GR Corolla. And I think that's given a lot of insight as far as the weak points on the car, especially on track, what you need to do, what you shouldn't do, whatever, and I've talked to Jack from Savage Geese about his car as well a good bit. And, he's like, yeah, it's the front diff overheats and, or the rear diff overheats and turns into a front wheel drive car, pretty quickly if you push it too hard. The car has limitations. I'm just happy it exists. And I think it's, again, really fun if you know what you can do and what you can't do. And, at least there's aftermarket solutions for some of that stuff as well. But yeah, hopefully, he continues to enjoy his. I certainly can understand the paranoia of having a car and seeing things about it, because that was the way it was for me with EcoBoost. With the EcoBoost Mustang, I was seeing these reports about engines blowing up left and right, and I'm like, crap, I'm starting to get paranoid about my EcoBoost blowing up. And I had some weird issues with mine as well, and then I'm doing these mods. I'm like, crap, I'm really not gonna have a warranty if this thing blows up. And so I can certainly relate to that. It's not a fun position to be in. I would just say, in addition to everything I've already said, the last thing I will say is try to stay off the forums. Try to just not entertain that stuff, because, with any complaint about a car being unreliable or something, those people are always going to be super vocal. it's the same as a restaurant review or anything like that. You always have the people, everyone that, goes and has a nice time at a restaurant, they don't all immediately run to their phones and say, this is the best meal I've ever had, blah, blah, blah. Like everyone's just like, wow, that was good. I'm going to go on with my life and, move on from today or whatever. You don't dwell on that. But if you had a horrible experience, those are the people that want to sit and talk about it. It's the same thing with, cars. The 5 people that have had jerk Corollas blow up or whatever it was, they're going to be super vocal about it. But what about the thousands of other people? They sell, 6,000 of them a year? If you have, you run the numbers, I don't know how many of them have blown up with a motor or whatever, but, you can do the math. 6,000 cars a year. They've been out, this is now, we're going into the 3rd model year for them here. We're talking 15,000 cars, maybe a little less. Even if 100 of them blew up, that's still really good odds. And so, I would just try to approach it with that, try not to stare on the forums and, obsess over every new failure that's happened, and instead just enjoy the car. And if something happens, it's going to happen. Staring and reading everyone else's reports about it, I mean, maybe again, you'll get a little bit of advice on what to, avoid or things to look out for failures and things. But, once you have a basic understanding of like, okay, here's the things I need to look out for, get off the internet with that stuff and just enjoy the car. That's what I had to do with the EcoBoost. But even then, I mean, it still kind of made me paranoid. But even, there were some issues with the 2018 Mustangs, and I was worried about the Bullet because there's people having these typewriter tick issues in their V8s, and people are having the Coyotes blow up. I'm like, okay, well, now there's people with the Coyotes blowing up, but this motor has been super reliable for the most part. Am I going to let this ruin my Bullet experience? And I basically just was like, I can't go on the Mustang forums anymore, because if I'm going to go on there, I'm going to go in the Bullet subsection. Someone's going to have some kind of issue, and then I'm going to be obsessing over that issue and being worried about it, because that's the kind of personality I have, and I can't do it. So, all that information is wonderful, but it's also a burden and a curse in a lot of ways as well. So I guess that's my advice to anyone that's might be paranoid about reliability or anything for that matter. It's just try and stay away from it and deal with it once it actually becomes an issue. And Underdog, thank you so much for the super chat. Sorry to make you wait. They're saying, in the market for a car, should I buy the new ND Miata and keep it nice since it will be the last of its kind, or get a used one and save the money? That comes down to how particular I think you are about, how nice you want it to be and all that. I mean, there's no substitute for a new car. You have full knowledge of the history from day one. You have treated it the way you want it to be treated from day one, outside of maybe an odd test drive or idiot on the dealer lot or something. But outside of that, you've been babied from the beginning or whatever. There's that kind of stuff that gives you an extra peace of mind that might be worth that price premium for a new one. But they do depreciate nicely, so you can save some good money on an ND, especially if you're willing to go back a couple of years, since they're largely the same from 2019 to 2023. So that's just up to you to decide what makes you feel better about it. I would also say, don't worry too much about ND Miata being the last of its kind, because Mazda is very resistant to doing any kind of electrification to that car until they absolutely need to, because that adds weight and they don't want to, and they are very passionate about that car. I mean, it's not going to go electric anytime soon. I think they said, if anything, they will maybe do the 48-volt mount hybrid system like you see in CX-90 and stuff. That could eventually work its way into that car. I don't even think that's a guarantee for the next generation, though. I mean, that could be like 2030s kind of tech for like a, because I think NE, if they call it that, might not have that, especially with a manual and all that. It'd be a little bit more complicated to kind of set that kind of thing up, because that usually requires extended stop starting and all these other things, where that's where you get all the gains from a 48-volt system. So if they're probably not going to see any kind of benefit from that, so I don't think you will really see any electrification in Miata until at least the 2030s. So if, what are we on now? 10 years of ND, and this is assuming a new one comes out in the next year or two. And it sounds like with ND3, that'll probably give it a few more years of life and stretch it out some more. So if we're talking late 2020s, 2027, 2028 for a next generation version, then that lives another 10 to 15 years like the current one has. We could be into the 2040s before we even see any kind of electrification. And it's such a slow seller that doesn't really drag their CAFE averages down a whole lot either. So that also kind of saves them in a way from having to worry about that too much. The other thing would be if there is, actual, mandates for a plug-in hybrid in 2035 or something like that, then, that would be the thing that would maybe force their hand a little bit. But until 2035, I think you're pretty safe to have a pretty similar experience to the current Miata, for a long while. So I wouldn't worry too much, but that shouldn't stop you from getting an ND. The NDs are fantastic. Enjoy it to the fullest, and I absolutely recommend getting one. Again, I would love to find a way to justify one myself, because especially ND2, and I'm assuming ND3 as well. That new motor they did a few years back is just amazing. I adore those things. You can see all my reviews on the NDs from the past few years, and I will finally have an ND3 coming in next month to review, and I'm very excited to spend another week with one. But yeah, they're fantastic. So I did lots of coverage on that. You can check out if you happen to miss that in the past. But hopefully that helps you a little bit. And thanks for the super chat, Underdog, as well. I really appreciate it. All right, so we're coming up on time here. So I'm going to try and get caught up on member questions, and then we will sign off. So Danny says the car that ended up being the family car for my family for many years was the 2006 Chevy Equinox. Then in 2018, it got totaled in an accident with a big contractor's Ford F450 or 550. Man, that's crazy. Hopefully everyone was okay. It was totaled, but it was 12 years old, had 130,000 miles, had the GM 3400 V6, and it would have been $4,000 to fix it, which it was that was what it was totaled for. Sadly, that's a shame. I couldn't keep it going longer. Yeah, Equinox that's another car where I hear some like good stories and some bad ones. It kind of goes both ways, it seems. But I'm glad that one was good for you guys, at least for a good long while there. He says the Equinox did 2 trips from New Jersey along the way down to Disney World and back, so it got the miles put on it and was a good car for my family. That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad it treated you guys well. And Austin says, I drive very defensively in my 500 Abarth and my Fiesta ST. A lot of people don't see me. Yeah, it's crazy. Jordan says, why doesn't Yamaha have a pedestrian car / vehicle now? I'd love to see Yamaha do anything in the automotive space here. It'd be great. Yeah, and they even were talking about Yamaha came up with like a new electric motor design that was pretty wild a couple years back, and I don't know if that just like ended up not being viable for production or why we never heard anything more about that. But Yamaha seems like they have some real moments of brilliance, and I'd love to see more from them, honestly, including cars. I think they were flirting with the idea of doing a car and potentially bringing it here, and then I'm not sure why that didn't pan out, but yeah, I'd love to see. I mean, they clearly, all the other, motorsports kind of vehicles they do, I mean, they know what they're doing in a lot of ways. So I'd love to see an actual good car from them. That'd be cool. And Danny says the driver's side rear quarter, tail light assembly, and the trunk were damaged. And the truck driver was found at fault, and the accident was a quarter mile from my house. Man, that's crazy. Yeah, I think the insurance statistic is that I don't remember the exact amount, but like a large majority of accidents happen within like 5 miles of your house. Typically, it's like if you're going to get into an accident, it's always like super close to home typically, which is kind of strange. But it's very rare that it happens, when you're further away. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Most people are usually driving, close to where they live, but that's where it's most likely to happen. Danny says the truck driver tried to squeeze past my mom as she was coming home from getting groceries for Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, that sucks. In 2018. Oh yeah, hopefully she was okay and no one else was injured other than the car. But that's not a good way to spend Thanksgiving. That sucks. Yeah, Austin's okay. I appreciate. Yeah. Check out RevMatch TV. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable, far smarter than I am about all that stuff. So definitely a much better resource as far as that. Again, he has real, weekly track experience in the GRD6. So I think he, kind of is at least with those tied in a little more. I don't know how much he knows about GR Corolla, but there should be some hopeful commonality there. And I think he chats with Toyota and GR a little bit more often than I do too. Dylan says justifying a car, man, I'm with you there. I miss my 340i tremendously, but priorities. Yeah, that's life gets in the way. I mean, it's a very common story that enthusiasts have is I had this, then I had to get rid of it because of kids or because of work or life or whatever, and missing the fun cars, but hopefully we can all work our way back into them someday. Steven says, I understand your brother-in-law works for a Toyota dealer. Did you ever have a chance to work with him and getting any cars for reviews? Yeah. So I mean, a lot of times it's just, new Toyotas that I can easily get, in the press fleet. And I'd rather have it for a week and do a, better video that way versus driving it for a few hours from a dealer. But that actually is how I got into the Pontiac Solstice earlier this year. Was that came in their used section, and it was like some little old lady that traded it in. It had like, I can't remember how many miles the one I drove had, like 3,000 miles or 4,000 miles on it, insanely low mileage, like a brand new Solstice. And that was a really cool experience to be able to experience and bring that to you guys as well. So that was the only one I've ever worked with them on. Was the Solstice, but I'm hoping to work with them some more in the future. I check out their inventory every once in a while, but I am so backlogged with press vehicles. I am like doubled up. I have like 2 cars a week for most of the fall already scheduled. So, and like I have like knowing the press cars that I have and knowing the trips that I'm going on and stuff, I already basically know my upload schedule for the rest of the year. It's like way backed up. So, I wanted to do more used stuff this year, and I wanted to do more privately owned stuff. The privately owned stuff's definitely not happening. The used stuff, if there's really something amazing that's like, really close and local, I may try and work it in. But I just right now, like I just like don't have enough time to edit everything I'm filming because I'm just filming so much. And I just have this giant backlog. So I'm trying to work it out. So maybe I can like not film very much this winter and just have such a backlog that I can ride that into the spring and not freeze my fingers off filming in the winter time here in Pittsburgh. We'll see, but yeah, hoping to do more stuff with them in the future. Jordan says, your thoughts in the future, could vehicle self-autonomy benefit public transportation, especially if a human operator experienced a medical episode? Well, that absolutely. That is something, especially as we're seeing an aging population here in the States and basically everywhere in the world. That is becoming more and more relevant. And that is why, a lot of these adaptive cruise systems now do have that, facial recognition, that detection of if, like Super Cruise, if they tell you to take over and you don't take over, it will eventually slow down and like put the hazards on and call the, emergency services. And there's more and more companies coming out with that component, even with, again, driver cars. As far as self-autonomy, and like how public transportation, all that, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Tesla robo taxi and things like that. I mean, as far as fully autonomous stuff, I still think that's a long ways off, but absolutely, I mean, there's a ton of benefits there. All these people we've been talking about tonight that can't be bothered to pay attention when they're driving, to drive safely, they just want to sit on their phones. I think they would love to, especially younger people could probably be very happy, just being Ubered around everywhere, if it was, cheaper or even cost equivalent to them, owning their own vehicle. So, I mean, that kind of thing could definitely catch on if, again, they can work out all the legal hurdles they got to jump through as far as liability goes and all that. And then also working out the tech to actually be safe. I mean, I think from an enthusiast standpoint, it's also a dream. If every, car that's out there is doing the right thing, that frees up the roads for the rest of us. If every autonomous pod wants to do 55 in the right lane on the highway, sweet, we finally have no more left lane hogs and we can actually enjoy ourselves. And I mean, again, within reason and being safe, but you don't have all the people sitting there thinking they're entitled to the left lane at 5 miles per hour over the speed limit or whatever, those types of things. And so I think that it'd be great to see, people that don't want to drive being able to not drive, and people who do want to drive finally being the ones that are actually the only ones out there on the road driving themselves. So I hope we get to some kind of mix and match feature like that. It's not an everything or nothing kind of thing, but it's another one of those things, like I said, with the EVs, where there's a long transition period with cars, being on the road a long time. And so, even if in October, Tesla has this amazing robo taxi thing that takes the world by storm, and it actually turns out to be amazing and safe and cheap and all that. Again, people are still going to be hanging on to their gas cars for decades. So you're never going to see a radical flip of a switch kind of change. It's always going to be a gradual thing. And there's a lot of people that are resistant to self-driving cars or any kind of, lesser feeling of control in general. There's been lots of surveys done about this stuff, and everything I've seen says a lot of people just don't trust it, rightly so. A lot of people don't understand a lot of it, rightly so, again, because they're not in the automotive industry to, know the ins and outs of some of this technology. But, they're just, people aren't going to trust it. I mean, look at, people can't trust EVs. They can't trust, other things. You hear one bad story and it spreads like wildfire. And so it's going to be the same with the autonomous thing as well. So that, I mean, if we're talking about like people resistant to EVs, autonomy is going to be even worse. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know if I'll ever even live long enough to see the day that we get to a fully autonomous future. I think that's easy 2050 or more for any kind of serious adoption. Again, you might have Uber try and buy a ton of them, and you might see it as an Uber vehicle or something, in a sooner time period. But as far as personal car ownership, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Anytime soon. Again, in most of our lifetimes, I would say. It just, I can't. I mean, I could be wrong. Again, maybe things will radically change, but people have a real love for their cars. Even if you're not an enthusiast, the amount of people that, again, love their Chevy Equinox, they put 100,000 miles on or whatever. Like, even those types of people are not going to very easily just be like, oh, sure, take it. I'm going to go hop in some autonomous pod. Like, there's a lot of hurdles there. And so I think, seeing how people are, again, it's just so nervous about EVs. Take that times 10, and you have some real safety concerns and a lot of other stuff. Like, there's no way. So yeah, I honestly still don't even take autonomous stuff seriously, to be totally honest. It's still kind of this pie in the sky Jetsons kind of idea that maybe someday will happen, but I'm not holding my breath. And Nicholas Water says, 900 BRZ has a great series trying to document and solve oil starvation in the right-hand turns. No product solution yet. I hope my 86 doesn't grenade, but I won't be driving it slow or anything. Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, is you go out and enjoy it. And, again, most people are, again, tracking them hard. And the oil starvation thing, again, RevMatch TV talked about that extensively, I believe. I mean, he's talked to me about it a lot. I'm pretty sure he's done videos as well. But, he's not concerned about it. So, I think it's one of those like stars aligning kind of thing to have something like that happen, potentially. But I mean, yeah, I haven't watched that series, so I'm sure there's lots of great info in there that I'm ignorant of and don't fully understand or realize exactly the whole story there. But let me see. Goth Rocker says, friend had to get rid of his Mazda Miata because girlfriend says it's unsafe. She freaked out when her friend was in a Cadillac CT5, was hit by a Hummer EV and was hurt. I told her the EVs are heavy. Yeah, that sucks that Hummer was involved in an accident too, and someone was hurt, because that's the problem with that. It's the same thing with Cybertruck and these others. 9,000 pounds for the Hummer EV. Anything gets in that thing's way, it's not a good time. And this is why I've told everyone that I know, stay far away from any of these large, especially the huge EVs like the Hummer, like the Cybertruck, because it's a lot of weight. People don't realize, like, it is huge amounts of weight, and weight is the biggest thing in a physics equation to lead to bad outcomes. So it sucks, because I mean, a Hummer EV's got a ton of safety techs. You would hope that at least the accidents would be minimized to the point of not hurting people, but clearly that's not working because people are getting hurt. So those technologies are not doing their job well enough, unfortunately. So this is why, if you're going to have these gigantic things, then you got to have good safety tech to try to rein them in a little bit as best you can. But yeah, that's unfortunate. Hopefully your friend's okay, but I can totally understand that, especially when you've been through an accident. I mean, it's tough to get back in the saddle, especially if you had a close call like that. Totally can appreciate that. And I hope her recovery wasn't too hard, and hopefully she's getting better there. And B. Mitchell says, I hear you talking with staying away from the troll farms on the forums. I've even got it chewed on by stating that, hey, mine has X amount of miles and works great. They want the drama. Yeah, which is weird. You think if you're a fan of a car, you'd want to see it do well, and you wouldn't, I'd be like, sweet, hey, look, someone actually is having good luck with theirs. I'd like cling on to that if I were an owner of that kind of a vehicle. That's strange. People are so thirsty for the drama. You think that we got plenty of drama these days. You don't need to go searching for more of it, but again, everyone's different, I suppose. Austin says, hey, Matt, any new plans for changes to your channel format to help with the algorithm? Not really. Like I said, I'm going to try and I think, you know, again, going to 4K is going to be something that'll be in my future at some point here as we see more and more people watching on TVs. But I just loaded up my channel on the TV just a few weeks ago, and it might not look quite as good, but to me, it still looks pretty good and holds up pretty well. So I'm not in a huge rush there, but that's something eventually. As far as the algorithm goes, there's not really anything that I know to do to boost things in a meaningful way. Like if I want to just boost the numbers for vanity's sake, doing more shorts absolutely would get me more views. It would get me more subscribers, but they'd be subscribers that want to see vertical content, and they would be views that are basically paying nothing. So that's a waste of time to me. And there's also, again, still been some stuff saying that, you know, shorts can potentially hurt a channel. So not going to get into that anymore. The one thing I may consider doing, and I'm actually, we're over time here, so maybe I'll talk about this a little bit more next week. But I'm considering doing maybe a vertical live stream or two just to try, because if you do a vertical live stream, supposedly it then gets put into the shorts feed, and that helps boost viewership of these lives. And, you know, these lives, I mean, I'm happy with our conversations. We obviously have great times every week here, but they're not growing at all. And I mean, that's okay. It is what it is. But, you know, to try to just, again, help the channel to succeed, growth is a goal. And so that's kind of something I'm kind of considering, is maybe doing vertical for the live streams, maybe just even once or twice, see if that moves the needle at all, and go from there, just to try and expose a few more people to the fact that, like, hey, I'm doing lives on here, for people that might not be aware of that are just sitting on the shorts feed right now and, you know, aren't on their sub feed or whatever. So that's one thing I'm trying, you know, the algorithm's been talking about recently. Otherwise, the big thing YouTube's pushing right now these days is shopping. They want everyone to tag products and everything and send people to some affiliate site or whatever, and, you know, buy stuff from whatever brands they're working with. You know, there's a bunch of big name brands and stuff. But my stuff, again, just is not conducive to that. I'm not going to be like, hey guys, I'm driving this car today, and here's my Adidas shirt, and here's my Puma shoes, and here's, you know, I'm not going to, like, it's not, there's no way to do that in a non-cringy way. But that's what YouTube wants right now. So my videos are just at a disadvantage, because they basically said, like, they are going to push channels and videos that have products tagged in them. I'm not going to do that. So it's just another way that I, you know, can't evolve with what YouTube wants. And, you know, YouTube just kind of always overlooked, like, the car segment in general on their site. And it's just another way where it's just, you know, not conducive to what I do. So I'm not able to really chase the algorithm as much as, you know, a lot of other creators that have these flexible videos where they can do whatever they want. And, you know, it's not just as rigid as mine is, of being like, I can only review the cars that are out there, and I'm only as good as the car that I'm in. You know, like, some of you, I'm sure, tune in just because it's me, but I think a lot of people, it's just like, is this a car I care about or not? And, you know, so I'm only as good as the car that I'm in. And so that's really where my hands are tied. And the algorithm can't really help me there either way, regardless. So I've kind of thrown my hands up in the air. I'm going to try and work my hardest at it, work smarter, you know, in the best way that I can, and try not to work, you know, harder. But I'm just going to do both and try my hardest here and see what happens. But I'm always, again, open to suggestions. But yeah, after trying to do experiments and different things to optimize things, I've kind of just been like, you know, nothing really seems to really do much. Daily uploads, I tried that as an experiment. That didn't help the algorithm at all, or help views really. So I gave up on that. There's just, yeah, I think at the end of the day, if the content is solid and the cars are solid and I'm solid, I'm hoping that, you know, it gives me some staying power here. But at the end of the day, I'm also just fighting, you know, being an old channel, you know, not having the freshest take on things, the freshest, you know, face, I guess. You know, it's just, I'm an old face here in the YouTube car world. For some people, that's a perk. For a lot of people, that's just like, nah, you know, I've watched his stuff in the 2010s. I'm over it. I'm on to, you know, the new guys that are doing this or whatever. So, you know, there's a lot of good choices out there. So I think it's, you know, just trying to hang on as long as possible and see where it takes me. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, I know you don't like the WRX anymore, but that car has magic to it. I think it's priced right. The GT model is pricey, but lower trims are giving a lot for the money. Sad you never got a WRX. Yeah, it'd be fun to check that box someday. But, and I do think the base WRX is a fantastic deal. I've said this many times, you know, for 30 grand or so, 271 horsepower, manual transmission, all-wheel drive, It's a solid combo. No one can match that. So if you're going for a cheap WRX, absolutely, it's a fantastic buy. I still wholeheartedly support it. And I still think they're fun cars. It's just there's others that do it better, but most of those are a little pricier. So there's that. If you're going into the 40s, then yeah, I'm going to tell you to get a GR Corolla or something. But if you're talking 30 grand, you can't get a GR Corolla for 30 grand. So absolutely, if you need all-wheel drive and a manual, WRX is the way to go. Absolutely support it for sure. I love them. Anyway, I see everyone else saying farewell here. And Garth Parker said the Hummer was flying and ran the intersection. Total the CT5, man. Well, I mean, I guess the good thing is, a 9,000-pound brick hit a CT5 and the person lived to tell a tale. Honestly, that's a feat in and of itself, to be totally honest, but obviously still not ideal. And yeah, that's the problem. These things are cool, they're great, but like anything else, if they're in the wrong hands, it's tough. I mean, obviously this can expand out to other things as well, but it just sucks, that some people ruin it for everybody else with those types of things and give them a bad rap and all that. But Trunk Car Guy says, frankly, they shouldn't allow just anyone to drive so large and heavy. I agree. I really think at a certain weight limit, you need to have a commercial license to handle commercial weight levels, honestly. It's just licensing is such a joke in America that they'll never do anything like that. So it's just going to be people's lives at risk instead, unfortunately. And we all fend for ourselves. But it's amazing other countries where they have actual strict licensing and the much better drivers they have, the better lane discipline, the better responsibility. It's just like a world of difference. But the American way is the American way, right? So it's as long as you have a pulse and you can go around the block without running into anything, they hand you a license and they never retest you again, which is the most insane part. They definitely need to at least retest people at some point down the road, make sure they still can actually do what they did when they were 16. But anyway, I won't go on any more rants here tonight, but Nicholas says we want Matt by Gucci. Yeah, that'd be I wouldn't say no to that collaboration. But I'm sure I am very on the bottom of their list. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining in. I see everyone just saying farewell here. So thank you all. Hope you have a great week. Thanks so much for hanging out here in the live stream, and stay tuned for more good stuff this week. I got, I think, actually 3 different review type videos coming out here this week. So a little bit more than usual. And so hope you enjoy them, and always appreciate your support here on the live streams and on the channel. So have a great week, everyone. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.